The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Service Desk Standard webinar. This is our first ever Service Desk Standard virtual event. All bit of a moment for us all, really. It's been the first ever one, so let's hope it all goes well. So my name's Tom. I shall be your host for the day. Your agenda looks something like this. So I'll do a little bit of introduction on what SDC is about, what the standard is about. That should last about 20 minutes, half an hour roughly. That will be followed by Lisa McDonald, which will then be followed by Cormac O'Brien at 2 o'clock. We'll have then a short break at 2:30, where we can all grab ourselves a tea, coffee, check some emails, and then we'll return at 2:45, where I'll introduce Paige Smith, followed by Lisa Edwards at 3:15, and then we'll aim to close around 3:45 with sort of any questions that you may have as a result of the afternoon sessions. So hopefully it will run smoothly and there'll be no technical difficulties. If any of you have any questions, then please post them online and we'll do our best to get through all of those. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I would also like to thank the afternoon sponsors, which is Sunrise. On your control panels for your webinar, under the section handouts, which is near the bottom of the control panel, you will see, hopefully you will see an SDC Essential Handbook download. If you can't see that, then we'll also include that in the follow-up email as well, but that's there for you to download whenever you wish. You can access to that at any time. We'll provide a copy of the slides Wednesday or Thursday at the absolute latest. And as I've said, if any of you have any questions, please type those online and we'll do our best to get through as many of them as we possibly can. Also, just before we sort of start off with my introduction, I'd like to sort of mention that early bird places for next year's conference, which is held in March, are selling really fast and are limited for both non-members and members. So if anybody is interested in capitalising on the early bird offers for next year's conference, then go onto our website, follow the conference link, and then you can look at the early bird prices. Or better still, speak to somebody and phone our offices and speak to Ruth, who can actually go through all of the offers and different ticket types for you as well. So what are we here to talk about? Well, we're here to talk about the SDC standard. Our speakers throughout the afternoon have all gone through the standard and all gone through the certification process. So they'll be able to give you real life accounts of what it's like, what they went through, different stories. They all faced different challenges as well, and how they sort of became an SDC certified desk as well. But for the purpose of sort of setting the mindset, really, an introduction, I wanted to sort of go through what this afternoon is all about. So as I mentioned, it's about the SDI Service Desk Standard and an introduction to the Service Desk Certification Program. The speakers would give you first-hand accounts of their experiences, of how they've aligned their desks to the standard and becoming certified. And actually, more importantly, I suppose, how achieving the certification has benefited those organisations. Now, the organisations that you'll hear from this afternoon are all very different. We have public sector, we have private sector, and they all had very different challenges and they all had very different reasons as to why they adopted the scheme. And hopefully we've given you a good overview. We will have, by the end of the afternoon, sorry, have given you a good overview and hopefully little bits and nuggets of information that will give you something to think about as to why you should look at adopting the program and how it benefits the business. So what is the Service Desk Standard? So how is it created? Well, it's created with the support of independent industry experts. It's a criteria scheme for service desk and IT support desks. It's robust, it's comprehensive, and the actual scheme itself are globally recognised. We have certified desks across the globe, just not here in the UK. It's an open source roadmap for creating a world-class service desk, essentially, one of those which you'll hear from this afternoon. What is the link between the standard and the service desk certification? Well, the service desk standard provides an underpinning maturity model and scoring criteria that the service desk certification is based on. Now, before I go on, what I forgot to say right at the beginning actually is if you hear me mention SDC or any of our speakers mention SDC, that means service desk certification. So achieving SDC verifies that you are following the standard as a maturity at the maturity level that has been awarded to you. All the speakers that you hear from today have gone through that journey, that followed the standard in order to achieve service desk certification. And actually through their relationship with SDI, it sustained, in most cases, sustained that certification period over a number of different years. And we'll go through that as the afternoon goes on. Why should a service desk work towards a standard? Well, it provides a structured approach to benchmarking. It's independent. It demonstrates that your support operation is dedicated to best practice. And it's a driver for continual service improvement. And what I mean by that is you don't just achieve the certification and then you stop. As you'll see in a later slide, you have a number of different surveillance audits over a 3-year period. And those surveillance audits are designed to help ensure that you continue to follow the standard once you've been awarded it. So it helps you, it helps drive and helps you sort of re-engage, I suppose, with continual service improvement. Also, it's a really good skills development tool. So, you know, there's areas within the program that would allow you to highlight areas of improvement, maybe technical knowledge with your service desk, maybe customer service knowledge with your service desk team as well. So it helps staff retention, it helps your service desk feel engaged with what you're trying to do, and it just helps bring the whole service desk team together to work towards one common goal, which ultimately is delivering service excellence to your customers and to your business. It also complements ISO 20000. So if any of the delegates there are already working for an ISO 20000 accredited company, or maybe sometime in the future, long term or short term, you're looking at adopting the standard, the SDI standard or SDC actually complements ISO 20000 very well. So there are 9 concepts in all to achieve certification. You should be able to see those on your screen now. They are leadership, policy and strategy, people management, resources, processes and procedures, managing employee satisfaction, managing the customer experience, management information and performance results, and social responsibility. The percentage rating you can see against each concept is the weighting on the scoring. So for example, as you can see, the highest one there is managing the customer experience at 20%, with social responsibility down at 2. So you basically have to score certain areas to actually get your star rating. So what is the Service Desk Certification Program, or SDC program? So it certifies Service Desk maturity against the Service Desk standard. It's a 3-year program in total, which we'll go through very shortly. And it's made up of an initial assessment, whereby we give you recommendations on improvements to be made against the standard. Then it's followed by your service desk audit, which is then all when I say summarized, it's all detailed very carefully in a final report. That final report will give you, along with some support from your consultant, will give you all the information that you need to provide clear and measurable set of benchmarks for your service desk operation. It includes criteria that you won't find in ITIL or ISO 20000. It supports both of those, but there are elements that you won't find in the ITIL framework or the 20000 standard. Also, it provides a impartial, I suppose, and independent verification of service excellence. And as I've mentioned, and you'll probably hear mentioned throughout the whole afternoon, it demonstrates a real commitment to continual service improvement for reasons you'll find out throughout the afternoon. Why benchmark? You know, you can see that on the screen. I won't actually go through them individually. I won't just read out what's on the slide, but you can see some of the reasons here as why you should benchmark. And our speakers will actually talk you through the reasons why they did it and the benefits that they have got it, because everybody has different stories, have realized different benefits as well. And one of the when I'm speaking to a lot of our customers, a lot of the challenges that they have is sort of staff engagement, staff morale, and that's another one of the benefits that we get from this, is that it actually shows your staff, your service desk team, that you're investing in the service desk, you're invested in them, you're invested in improving the service to the customers, which takes the stress away from your frontline staff who actually deliver the service. Therefore, they will stay with you a lot longer. The morale will be higher. If their morale is higher, they will naturally and almost by force of habit deliver a better service to your customers, because they are enjoying their jobs. You know, the pressure's taken away from them. Again, you can see it here, a driver for continual service improvement. So there are lots and lots of different reasons as to why we should benchmark. So the Service Desk Certification Program is, as I've mentioned before, made up of a number of different phases. The first of these is an assessment, which involves lots of group interviews with your service desk team, your key stakeholders, including your customers, for us to gain a good understanding of how your service desk is run, delivered, and operated. It's not on this slide, but there is a phase before this, which is the pre-certification workshop, which is just a one-day event. The assessment is 2 days. The pre-certification is a one-day event whereby we just come to your offices, we speak to your whole team, we set the scene, we explain what it's all about, we explain the involvement that's needed by the company and the people, what you need to do. So it's a good sort of mental preparation, if you like, for the journey ahead. It's not essential, it is an optional thing. We do recommend it, but it really starts with this assessment phase here. It is then followed by a certification audit, which again is group and individual interviews this time, where you will also provide objective evidence against the 9 concepts that we showed you a couple of slides ago. Once you've had your certification audit, it is then followed by your surveillance audit, which is again group and individual interviews, where I'm talking about your stakeholders, I'm talking about your service desk staff, your frontline staff, and where we'll actually go through your objective evidence and any improvements you've made against the concepts from the certification audit stage as well. It's also important to add that it's not just a case of us showing up on site and talking about the improvements that you need to make. There is we've got a dedicated account manager that will actually, through your whole journey with SDI, will actually make sure and support you through the evidence that you need to provide, check that everything's in line, check that you've got everything prepared for the auditor. You'll have the same auditor throughout the whole program as well, so they'll really understand the business, they'll really understand why you're doing it, and they actually build up really good relationships with all of your people. So they'll learn the characters within the team and almost become an advisor and a sort of an addition to the service team that will actually help you through your SDC certification program. So what are the timescales? So if we, for the time being, for the purpose of this slide, if we ignore the pre-certification workshop that I mentioned a couple of slides ago and use the assessment as the starting point, that's 2 days. We go through that. We provide the report, as I mentioned. 9 months after that, we do your first certification audit, which is a 4-day on-site visit by one of our consultants. And then 12 months after your certification audit, you have your surveillance audit, which is a 2-day phase. And then 12 months after that, your second surveillance audit, which is another 2 days. Now, if you continue to engage with the program thereafter, obviously every 12 months you'll get a surveillance audit 3, surveillance audit 4, surveillance audit 5, etc. Now, it's really important that we try as much as we can to actually keep to that timescale. Logistically, it can be a little bit challenging with aligning diaries and what have you, but we need to protect the integrity of the program and make sure that we are measuring all of the service desks in exactly the same way and over exactly the same timescales as well. Granted, there may be a few occasions where your sort of first surveillance audit may be 13, 14 months. We do allow a little bit of contingency for obvious reasons, but it is really imperative that we try and keep as close to this timescale as we possibly can, for reasons that I've already explained. All of this is followed up by your audit report, which is a informative, at times large document, but very, very easy to read. And examples of these can be sort of emailed out to you as well. But that provides all of our findings, all of our suggested improvements, where you need to be, what you need to do to achieve your sort of service desk aspirations. Really, it is a very well written, in-depth, informative, impartial report that will give you all the information you need to help sustain your certification or obtain your certification if you're looking at entering it at any stage, and drive the continual service improvements you're going to hear mentioned throughout the afternoon. There are so many reasons to invest, it is impossible to put them on one slide. Here are just an example of some of the feedback that we've had from our customers. A lot of our customers enter in it for different reasons. A lot of our customers enjoy different benefits, but ultimately the end goal remains the same. It's about delivering service excellence. It's about being able to demonstrate, and maybe prove is a better word actually, being able to prove to your business, to be able to prove to your board, to prove to your customers, your stakeholders, the value that you and your service desk team and that whole IT function offer to the business. It's not just about IT support. This is a business critical service that we're doing, and you need to be able to stand up in front of your bosses, your board members, your stakeholders, whatever you want to call them, hold up a piece of paper and say, this is how we're adding value. And that is a sort of what you see on the screen are all the sort of a collaborative reasons to value to give you that one piece of paper that says we are doing a good job and here's proof that we're doing it. Again, well, briefly mentioned benefits in the previous slide. It's different. Every organization is different, as you hear this afternoon. Everybody enters the program, adopts the standard for very, very different reasons, but the end result is the same. Delivering good service, being able to prove and demonstrate value, being able to invest in people, invest in skills, retain your staff, keep your customers happy, make sure your customers are satisfied, making sure that the perception is right. All of these elements here combined together will enable your service desk team to actually deliver a really good service naturally, because they're following clear, well-defined guidelines against this standard. And the benefits, as you'll hear throughout the afternoon, have been huge, which is why some of our customers have stayed within the program far beyond the first 3 years. I think one of the speakers from this afternoon has been with us since 2012, for example. So we're talking 4, 5, 6 years. Some of the relationships that we've had with some of our customers, which you can see on this screen. A selection of them, that's not all of them, obviously, but you've got some private sector customers there, we've got some charities, we've got public sector, we've got managed service providers. Lots of different organizations enter into the program for lots of different reasons. And if you want to speak with any of these independently or personally, please let us know. We can set up conference calls, we can set up site visits with any of these, so you can actually speak to them and understand why they did it, the challenges that they faced, and what they've got from it as a result. So please feel free to speak to any of our trusted advisors if you want to speak to any of our customers in person to get an idea of exactly why they've done it. So with that in mind, that brings the introduction to a close. And I hope that that sort of has provided you a good background and a good understanding of the standard and the certification program, so you can sort of understand what our speakers are going to speak about for the majority of the time. So with that in mind, our first speaker is Lisa McDonald from the University of Edinburgh. Lisa is the user support manager from the University of Edinburgh. They were awarded a 3-star certification in 2016 and are currently undergoing their second surveillance audit. So I would like to hand over to Lisa McDonald.
Thanks, Tom. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to be sharing the story this afternoon of the University of Edinburgh's SDI certification story, and just explaining how we've been striving for service desk excellence, but also talking about the gains that we've achieved from our relationship with the SDI. So to begin with, here's a little shot of the team. We are based in the University of Edinburgh. We currently have a team of 24 people in the user support team, and we're part of information services at the university, with us reporting directly to the user services division. You can see some of the team there looking nice and happy on the day that Paul Rodriguez, the chairman of the SDI, visited us. That was the day that we got our certification, and it was a really proud day for us. And I'm going to be talking today about the benefits that we've seen from following the certification program across the last few years. We're currently a 3-star customer-led service desk, and as Tom says, we're currently in the middle of our second surveillance audit. So a wee bit about the team at the University of Edinburgh. My team is responsible for supporting pretty much anyone who might want to use university services. We currently have around 230,000 people that could potentially contact us. Of those, 40,000 are students, around 14,500 are staff, and the remainder is made up of visitors, applicants and alumni. And we have 3 strands of service at the university. Our primary service desk is the IS Helpline service, and that's where we deliver virtual support really. It's telephone, email and web self-service type portal support for anyone wanting help with connecting to information services. We handle around about 4,000 calls a month, and we also operate on a 24/7 basis in conjunction with our partners at Northumbria University. We use the Norman service to help deliver our services when we don't have staff on campus. The next part of our service is the IT support desk, and I'll be talking a little bit about that later on, but it's primarily a Genius Bar type setup where people can come for assistance with connecting their mobile devices to University of Edinburgh services, and they can walk up at any time and get help. It's student peer support with staff from my team helping alongside. And then the third strand of service that we work with is second line desktop application support. So we're doing support for people going to their offices, helping them rebuild machines, working with software application issues and that type of thing. So we have a wide range of things that we're responsible for. So why did we choose the SDI to begin with? Well, our journey started back in January 2015. Gavin McLaughlin joined us as our new CIO, and he brought with him a new shift left agenda. He was very keen that we start to look at enhancing the student experience and that we looked at how we could best support students. Alongside that, we wanted to benchmark ourselves. We'd had a number of changes across the organisation. We'd had some restructuring going on, and we just wanted to refocus now that the team had settled down into the new organisation. We also wanted to get a little bit of guidance from the industry on areas that maybe needed improving that we hadn't identified ourselves. And we looked at a number of different things. Our library service desks have achieved customer service excellence, and we did look at that auditing programme, but we decided it wasn't quite aligned with what services we were delivering. We felt it didn't have enough in the way of IT and its own maturity, and we just felt that the SDI certification programme and the SDI standard really covered everything we were looking for and that we would want advice on. Alongside that, we had spoken to our colleagues at St Andrews University, and they were one of the first universities to achieve a 4-star success. So we were really keen. We had watched the gains that they had made from working with the Service Desk Institute. We could see how their processes and their services had improved and how their staff had really been motivated by their journey. So all in, we decided this was what we wanted to do. So we went off and persuaded our CIO that it would be a great thing to do. We got Lorraine Brown from St Andrews University to come along and have a chat to him about the St Andrews journey, and thankfully we had agreement and investment to proceed. So we thought, we'll start out, we'll do our online performance assessment report. And this is a really good starting point if you're not sure if you're ready for embarking on this sort of a programme. It's a short set of assessment questions, and at the end of it, you're given a report, and it lets you see your maturity in relation to the 9 different concepts that Tom has shown at the beginning there. We did our assessment and we came out with 3 stars. We probably rated ourselves a wee bit better than we were initially, but we decided it was time to embark. And so from there, we went straight into audit assessment in January 2016. There is the ability to go and do a pre-certification event. We chose not to do that, but that was after a discussion with the Service Desk Institute, and it's really good to have a chat with them to see whether that event is of value to you or not. For us, we decided that it probably would be okay and we wouldn't go ahead with it. So we came into audit assessment in January 2016. And we met with Carla Thornley, who was our auditor at that time. We had 2 days of talking about how we do what we do. It's very much anecdotal at that stage. You don't have to provide concrete evidence. It's very much talking about the services that you deliver. And we got our initial report. And at first we thought, oh, fantastic, 2.58, that's great, that's a certification level of score. But in actual fact, you do need to achieve a score of at least 2.3 on each concept. And you can see here from our initial report that we were slightly below the mark on number 2, which is policy and strategy, and number 8, which is performance metrics. So we took a step back, we got an amazing and very comprehensive report, and we had a look at that and decided that what we would do was to set our audit date for 6 months' time in July 2016. Excuse me. So over those 6 months, we took time to prepare. We had our report, and the first thing we did was we went back to management. We already knew that we had investment in the process by fact that we had been allowed to join the Service Desk Institute. So we thought we would take advantage of that, and we managed to persuade management not only to commit to the time investment that's needed for this sort of certification programme, but also to invest in other tools. We were able to get a new telephony system, so we now have an automatic call distribution system, which is very much like a call centre type solution, but gives a huge amount of sophistication and allowed us to properly start to measure our service and to be able to see what we needed to do to improve. We were also given investment in the form of a new remote assistance tool, and we opted for BOMGAR because we felt that that gave us the ability to support everyone we needed to on the variety of platforms that are used in higher education. And it also allowed us to extend support to international students and people who were online distance learners. The next thing that we did was to sit down with the team and to give them a name for all of this. We wanted them to understand why we were pursuing certification, and we thought we would do that by getting them to set a vision and mission statement. And this was a really surprising exercise for me because it had such a strong effect on the team, and it was one of the things that has given them the strongest sense of identity. We started out looking at the university's vision and mission statements, and from there moved on to information services vision and mission statements, and then more locally looked at our own directorate statements before embarking on trying to set our own. And the team all got together in a big room. We gave them a couple of examples to get them started, but they eventually came out with a fantastic vision statement, which is striving for service desk excellence at the heart of the University of Edinburgh. And they felt that really represented what they wanted to be trying to do. They wanted to strive for excellence, but also that the service desk should be at the heart of the organisation and that it should be there giving the people-friendly, user-focused help. And once we had those two statements, our vision and our mission statements, we moved on to setting our key performance indicators and our critical success factors. And those were what we used to show how we were going to achieve our vision and mission statement. So we looked at the performance metrics that we had, we looked at the goals of the organisation and the goals of the university, and we started to set these goals explaining what we wanted to be recognised for and how we were going to achieve that. And we've continued to review and use our critical success factors and KPIs as we've moved on with this programme. So once we set the ground rules for how we were going to operate, what we wanted to achieve and how we were going to be recognised, we moved on to creating some documents to help support this process. So one of the things we did was to pull everything together in an operational handbook where the team could all see at any time how to deliver a service. It's very much the case that we now have a document that if we all win the lottery and run away, there's now a book there that tells somebody how to set up our service from scratch, and it includes everything we would need to be able to run the service. Alongside that, we looked more generally at our processes and procedures as well, because we had found that we had over time become an organisation where we had a lot of documentation, a lot of procedure documents, but there was a lot of duplication. Some things weren't edited and reviewed as frequently as they should have been. So this was a great opportunity for us to consolidate all of those documents into one place and to set up some clear processes, perhaps for those things that we had just done over the years without ever documenting how we did them. And then at the end of that all, we created our CSI register, and this has been a real living document for us where we continue to note down all the things that we're doing to improve the service, but also all the things we want to do. And we also make sure that we document the things that we've maybe tried and then withdrawn because it didn't work so well. And that's been a real useful place for us to continue to collect the work that we're doing to improve our services. So towards the end of the 6-month period, we had to start to think about our evidence. For your certification audit, you have to provide evidence of the fact that you are meeting the various concepts. And we found the easiest way for us to do this was to use Confluence Wiki. It was a tool that we had used for a number of years for our knowledge base wiki, and we felt that it would really lend itself well to being able to collect evidence. So we had a chat with the Service Desk Institute and checked that they would be happy that we used this. We had a chat with our account manager and our auditor, and we were given the nod to proceed. So what we did was we created a section for each of the concepts, the 9 concepts of the certification standard, and within that we created some space for people to collect evidence items against each of the criteria. And this was really good, not only for us to make sure that we collected everything we needed, but it also made things a lot quicker when it came to audit interview, because the links were already there. We weren't having to go between various different repositories to find information, and we could see there exactly what we had, along with a description of what the item was. We also, when it came to evidence, we treated the whole certification programme very much as a project, and we've made sure that we assigned evidence champions to each of the 9 concepts. And this was really useful for getting other people engaged. It gave people the sense of ownership of the whole process and felt that it wasn't just a management level form filling exercise or audit, it became very much a collaborative team event, and people became very proud about the evidence they were creating. It also meant we had several heads getting together to collect the evidence, and that we had a broader spread of evidence than we might have had if it was just one person that was doing that. So it was really good to be able to share the load amongst the team. So from that point, it all too quickly became the day of our certification audit. And your certification audit happens over 4 days. So Carla Thornley came back to visit us again, and it was quite a tiring 4 days. It was hugely enjoyable, though a lot of people will tell you it can be quite tiring getting ready for audit and actually going through it. But I actually found it a really enjoyable experience, and maybe I'm strange, I don't know. But there are a series of interviews. There are 8 interviews in total. 2 of the concepts are joined together because they're related. But overall, you have 8 different interviews on each concept, and the auditor goes through with you to check the evidence that you've provided for that concept, and also to talk to you about how you meet the criteria. And we found with these it was really good to get people in from other teams across the organisation. We tried not just to keep it to the service desk. We brought in people from network services, from application tier support, and even from the library services, just to show how the organisation hung together. And that allowed us to demonstrate much more fully the maturity of the organisation. Once the interviews are completed, there are also some periods of observation, and these are really good for showing the auditor things that might be difficult to demonstrate by giving evidence, or it might be something in particular that you're especially proud of that you want to showcase. So we put those in as well as observation points. And then there are also there's an opportunity for people to have employee interviews, and this is where your auditor goes and speaks to the people within your team who are delivering the services. So they're not just hearing the management perspective, they're hearing the employees' views on how it is to work in the organisation, how they feel supported, are they having enough career support and personal development, that type of thing. And then at the heart of it all is obviously the customer, and there's some time at the end for the auditor also to speak to some of your customers. And for us, we took a leap of faith with this. It would have been really easy for us to give our auditor the very best customers we had, the people who were going to say we were amazing. But we actually decided to choose some customers who we weren't entirely sure what they were going to say, because one of the greatest benefits of a program like the certification program is that you really do get an insight into your organisation that you might not be aware of. It might sometimes be one that you don't especially want to hear, but it will ultimately be incredibly useful in helping you to improve your services and to improve how you manage your team. So we took all that together, and we got through our 4 days and everyone survived and was quite happy at the other end. At the end of the audit, we were given our result and we were absolutely delighted because we had actually achieved a 3-star rating, which is a customer-led rating, on our first attempt. We had hoped we might do this, but we weren't entirely sure that we would. So the fact that we actually managed it was really quite something for us. And we were really proud of the achievements that we made, including those 2 areas where we had been below certification level to begin with. So we didn't stop. Very soon after audit, we were given our audit report and it was on to surveillance period 1. So that was a period from the end of audit July 16 until July 17. And during that time, we worked on a number of initiatives. We had a new standard to get to grips with. The standard changed from version 6 to version 7 during that time. We also moved to a new building, so we had to get used to making new relationships with various people. And we also wanted to focus on really embedding the gains that we'd seen from continual service improvement. We wanted to look at using business decision making to change our service and to make sure that we were using all these great metrics that we were now collecting to be able to make those decisions. And we also wanted to look at skills matrices for the team to make sure that we were training people up correctly, and also to help the team with career mapping, because there's an awful lot of good things within the Service Desk Institute standard which will help you not just with the obvious things like customer experience, but also in how to bring your staff along and how to help them have a career in service desks and beyond. So we looked at all of that, and Carla came back for 2 days of audit in July 2017, and you can see on the screen here that we managed to retain our 3-star rating. There has been a move now away from using stars, but we're quite attached to them, so we still talk of our 3-star rating. But we kept our customer-led rating and made some inroads towards that 4-star business-led maturity. And we saw some gains in some areas that we had previously not perhaps felt quite so strong on, and that was down to the quality of report we'd received and the advice that we'd been given by the SDI. So from there it doesn't stop. We're into surveillance audit period now. We're in the throes of audit. We have a new auditor this year. Sadly, Carla left the Service Desk Institute. The lure of higher education must have been too great, and she's no longer with the SDI. But we now have Lynn Nash as our auditor, and that's been fantastic for us because we now have a new perspective on our service. It's somebody from a different sector who comes with new ideas, a fresh set of eyes, and we're feeling really reinvigorated by working with Lynn. We also had a new director join our university, so we have a new director of user services, and Gosha Such is our director. She's joined us from Heineken International, and so she brings with us a wealth of information from the public sector, which from the private sector, which we maybe wouldn't previously have had available to us, and that's been really useful to us as well. We've continued to improve on our use of metrics. We've been doing an awful lot of work around self-help, looking at creating web forms to make it easier for people to report faults to us or to ask for service requests. We have been doing a lot of user journey mapping, so we've been working with students, getting them to tell us how they want to find their information on the website, and we've been recording them navigating their way through our website and using that information to make improvements. The IT support desk that I spoke about at the beginning, that's become a permanent service. That was something that was initially created as a trial to see if there was an appetite for it, but the students love it. It's a greatly used service, and it really has enhanced our suite of user-facing services at the university. And we've also been doing a lot more on skills and career path mapping as well, taking forward the information that we've had from both Carla and from Lynn. This was an area where it took us a little bit of time to get our head around what we actually needed to do with regards to achieving certification in this particular area. But we've had a huge amount of support from Carla and from Lynn and they've helped us understand what's required of us, but not only from the perspective of achieving audit, about what will really benefit the staff and allow them to be developed in the best possible way, and also for us to ensure that we're developing our services with their skill sets in mind. So time will tell for us how we're going to do on that one. But one of the nice things about the Service Desk Institute is that it's not just all about the certification and the standard. There's a wealth of knowledge there. We're obviously in the 30th year of the Service Desk Institute this year. And those 30 years of knowledge have all really been put into creating a huge suite and range of different services that people can take advantage of. There's a fantastic website with a whole load of white papers, webinars, case studies, a lot of different samples of different documentation that you might want to borrow from or to look at to get ideas. There are some fantastic training courses that go on, and there's now also a venue in Glasgow, which greatly pleased those of us that are based in Scotland. But one of the things for us that we've really enjoyed most of all is the conference. The annual conference is a fantastic event, and if you haven't been before, I strongly recommend that you do try and get along. Early bird booking is open now, I believe, and I'm not on commission. It's a really great opportunity to meet people from other sectors. In higher education, we often stay very insular. We often only ever speak to other higher education organisations, but the conference is a fantastic place to hear other sector stories and to get to know other people and learn from them as well. It really is a very valuable experience. And the highlight of it all for us are the annual Support and Service Awards. And we've been trying now for a few years. We've not quite succeeded yet to be able to achieve an award, but we have been shortlisted twice as Best Service Desk. And these awards are not just about the glitz and the glamour of the ceremony, lovely as it is, but it's very much around the fact that it creates a sense of team pride and focus, and it lets the team see what they've been working on across the year. As part of your submission, you have to create a report which shows why you deserve to win the award, and it's a great opportunity to review your year and to look at everything that you've achieved with your relationship with the SDI. So to summarise, as we're coming towards the close, I just wanted to talk about some of the benefits that we have achieved, and the biggest ones for us. As a team manager, the biggest one for me has been seeing the sense of pride and the identity that my team have achieved over the last few years. A lot of the time, the service desk is the hidden hero of any organisation, and it can be quite hard for them to get recognition and respect because people only ever really come and talk to you when something's broken or something needs done. But what's been wonderful about this whole experience for us is that getting other teams involved in our audit programme and in our certification programme and working with them on continual service improvement has really shown people that we're very professional about what we do, that we care a lot, that we are very strong at what we do, and that we do have credibility. And it's really allowed us to influence best practice in the organisation. We're now in a situation where other parts of the business are looking to us to see if we can offer them any advice on delivering their services, and we're starting to look at working with other parts of the business to collaboratively deliver first line support, because they can see that we've gained a huge amount of knowledge from our certification programme, that we do have very clear and mature processes and procedures, and that we operate a quality professional service with the customer at the heart of what we're doing. And that's been something that's been really beneficial not only to us but to our users. Our users can now see that we are their trusted partner in the organisation, and that we will represent their views and take them back to the wider information services group with a view to improving the quality of all of our services. Continual service improvement now is day-to-day for us. We now are continually looking at opportunities to improve our services. There's a great deal of enthusiasm in the team because they can see that they are listened to. They can see that if they come up with an idea, we will try and act on it now. So it's not just management dictating how the services will be run, and that's been really important for us. And then some hints and tips to finish up now towards the end. When it comes to certification, I would always try and run your programme as a project. We have quite a mature project methodology in place at the University of Edinburgh. And what we did was we've borrowed some aspects of that to help deliver our certification programme. As you saw, we have a wiki space which we use to collect the information around our project. We try and collect any useful papers there, but we've also treated it as a project. So there's a project code, as there would be for any technical project in the University of Edinburgh, and we report back regularly on the success of the project and the achievements that it has made. And that has kept us focused on what needs to be done. It's meant that we have regular meetings. We don't just see this as an annual event, it's something that we live and breathe year round. With regards to evidence, that's very much the same thing. We don't look at collecting evidence as an annual task. We're continually looking at things that we can add in or refresh to make our evidence as interesting and as current as possible, and to show that we're improving every year as well, to make sure that we do put in fresh evidence and that we're not just relying on the same subset and that our ideas are going stale. So it's been really important for us to continue to do that. And it's a great repository. Even sometimes if you can't find that document in a hurry, you will know it will be in your evidence. So it can be useful on a day-to-day business level as well. And it's also good to use the best tool for you. I can really recommend having a chat with the Service Desk Institute if you think that you have any tools available that might help you submit your evidence in a slightly different way. The Service Desk Institute will give you all the tools you need to be able to submit your audit evidence, but if you find a different way of doing something that might be a bit innovative, have a chat to them and see if it's something that they can maybe work with as well, because it might be something that could benefit all of us that are part of the programme. Do get other teams involved. The benefits you'll gain from having other teams involved in this programme are endless, and it really will help with your team's reputation. And do ask for help. I would love to say our journey from beginning to end has been an absolute doddle and that we've had no problems at all, but it's not always the case. You do have difficulties sometimes. Sometimes you're not entirely clear on what's expected of you, but we've had amazing relationships with our account managers, both Richard and James, and also with Carla and Lynn, our auditors. And it's really important to speak to these people because the knowledge they have and the willingness to help it's just endless, and you get so much support from them if you just ask. And be transparent, that's another thing. If you're transparent about how you're going, you'll get all the support you need. And finally, engage with the wider SDI community. It's a fantastic community of people. We're all passionate about the same thing. We all care about customer service excellence, about developing our people and our services, and there's a wealth of knowledge out there. So do get to know other people and speak to them, even if it's people not in your own sector. And that's all really, that's all I have to say. We're looking forward to keeping on with our relationship with Service Desk Institute. We'll yet to see if we'll make those 4 stars business-led certification, but I hope that this session's been useful for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lisa. A few things that sort of listened to there was particularly, you mentioned continuous service improvement. One of the things you mentioned is how it's helped you drop things that you are not doing well, keeping the things that you're doing very well, but actually stopping the things that aren't working too well. And that was quite interesting to listen to. But also during my opening, I mentioned the support that our auditors and the trusted advisors from SDI offer. And one thing you said was about how comfortable you feel being transparent with Carla, with Lynn, and with James and Richard previously. And I think that's a really important thing to sort of try and highlight, is because if you're not transparent, if you're not open with us, then we're just completely unable to sort of support you in the best way we're able to. So some really good tips, advice, and information there. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Cormac O'Brien from Belfast Health and Social Care Trust. Cormac is the operations manager there, and they have just finished their 4th audit. They achieved a 3-star rating in 2013. So I'll hand over to Cormac. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, folks. Hope you can all hear me okay. Just like to say I was very impressed with Lisa's opening presentation. I doubt that mine will go as well, but we'll give it a try. As Tom said, my name is Cormac O'Brien. I'm currently the Trust's ICT Operations Manager, which that's after a restructure and a promotion about 4 years ago. I'm still not sure that was a good thing to do, but we are where we are. For the preceding 7 years, I've been the Service Desk Manager. I have about 25 years experience in the health service, 22 of which have been in IT. As one of my colleagues would say, I've earned my stripes. I was emailed initially asked if I would participate today without much scope beyond talk about our SDI journey. I wasn't too sure what to do, so I thought I'd just best start at the beginning. I'll run through a brief history and some potted metrics, and I'll keep the metrics short. I'll walk through a bit of the reasoning for choosing the Service Desk standard, hopefully show how the Service Desk has helped us, and then if you really want to, you can ask some questions at the end. Bit of background about the Belfast Trust. It covers the wider Belfast area with about 22,000 employees, about 15,000 regular IT users, 36,000 managed network devices. We'll not talk about the unmanaged network devices. About 900 odd applications which we have to cater for as well, and we have a couple of PFIs which had to be thrown in as well just for extra complexity. In short, a lot of people contact us about a lot of things, but then I suppose we're no different than any other service desk or any other IT department. In 2008, the Belfast Trust came into existence. The Review of Public Administration, or RPA, was really a cost-saving exercise, cost-cutting exercise. For the Belfast area, it merged 5 trusts in total, 3 acute trusts, 2 community trusts, and a regional specialist orthopaedic hospital into the Belfast Health and Social Care Trust. The combined IT staff roster at the time went down from about 125 to 88 people. It sounds like something in a Quentin Tarantino movie. And that was through natural wastage in the preceding couple of years. And it's still the same today. It's still the same 88 personnel. Even over the last 10 years, IT has become much more integrated into the fabric of the health service. The place can't run without IT. The trust would literally have to close its doors. We recently ran a desktop exercise around cybersecurity for our directors, co-directors, and senior managers, along the lines of what would happen if we were unfortunate enough to be hit with a WannaCry type attack. It's fair to say that the light bulb went on above a lot of people's heads that day, more so because they learned the extent of the impact. No lab results, no X-ray results, no access to health records, no access for catering to order food, no fire alarm system, no communication whatsoever. Even if you knew who to contact, you would have no way of doing so. But back to 2009 and RPA, it was a time of great upheaval for everyone, with departments merging, units having to move from one side of the city to the other, and the loss of literally hundreds of middle managers all got away free of Scott Will on voluntary early retirement. All that knowledge and experience walking out the door. It really was a horrible time. About 2 years into it, I remember being in a room with about 40 or 50 of my colleagues undertaking a recruitment and refresher course in HR, when the chap at the front of the room, who I have known for a long while, mentioned that there was someone in the room from IT, and there was an audible moan and an intake of breath. I hid in the corner. We were not well liked. And it was primarily down to those figures you see for 2009. I also suppose we bore the brunt of a lot of the discontent that was going on around RPA. People were not happy. But over time, we turned it around, but we were still tarred by that intake of breath, that audible moan, IT, they're useless. So what to do about it? We needed to show people we weren't as bad as they remembered, and we were actually offering a decent enough service at the time. I'd had some previous experience with ISO. One of my previous jobs in the health service, we went for the ISO certification and achieved it to 20,000 and 27,000. But when we looked at it this time for the Belfast Trust Service Desk, I didn't think it was the right fit. It was too theory-based. I didn't feel that at the time when I went for it at the time with my legacy trust that it was worthwhile or it was worth doing. We looked at different versions of ITIL and some way of benchmarking ourselves against that. We looked at training the individual staff members. I thought about it at the time, getting them all accredited as service desk analysts via the SDI. But the drawback of that is that once I had them trained, I knew they'd walk out the door. After a bit of looking around, I came across the HDI, the Help Desk Institute, and then the SDI. And that was more or less the eureka moment. They came across the idea they could certify or accredit the desk as a whole and maintain that, put the policies and procedures in place that everybody would adhere to. It was very hands-on, it was very practical. And at the time, it was the likes of Lenovo, Barclays Bank, O2, and seeing the previous slides, see some of them are still at that. The thing excuse the SDI bump on the screen. The thing I like about it, and the reason, as Tom says, that we've stuck with the last 6 years, is it provides a framework or a roadmap for us to continue to improve our service. It has moved us, or at least the service desk, from, as I like to say, gifted amateurs to professionals. It's a professional standard. We talked about the audit process. Our first day audit, well, the first 4-day audit was nerve-wracking. Our auditor was a guy called Tony Ranson, who I think has since moved on. He reveled in his role. I think he got a kick out of pointing out, how shall I say, where we had room for improvement. But we got it. We got a 3-star accreditation. Hart Kendall, who was the chairman, came along at the time and presented us with our first plaque. We had our director there, we had our co-director there. It was all very nice, very warm and very welcoming. But more importantly, on the back of it, we won our Chairman's Award that year and got a £3,000 prize fund, which was to be reinvested in the service. If anybody asks, it went towards our outdoor meeting room. But in actual fact, it's our beer garden out the back. After we had retained this 3 stars for a couple of years, we went back and did the ISO 20000 Service Management Award. Primarily because it was a breeze after the SDI. All the hard work had been done. It was just a matter of changing the titles and a few phrases. Everything else just fell into place. And probably unfairly, ISO has a better name, or a better branded name than the SDI. And on the back of that, we were able to publicize again the work that the service desk was doing here. In my new role now as the operations manager, I also have responsibility for the telephony service. And although the SDI isn't a natural fit for them, I am putting them down the EFQM route with the Centre for Competitive Excellence. As I can see the benefit the structure has brought for the service desk, and I want to implement that with the switchboard staff now as well. Hard, he looks a bit scared there, doesn't he? That's him there in the middle. I don't know what he's at now, but he came along, as I say, and awarded us our plaque, which is still hanging up in the boardroom. Actually, it's our third version of the plaque is still hanging up in the boardroom. But it was a good day. We have a mission statement and a vision statement, just like Lisa had previously. Before I started down this road of the SDI about 10 or 15 years ago, I would have been a bit jaded and cynical about this, but I'm proud of these statements. Again, like Lisa, we got the desk personnel together and they came up with them themselves. They had the buy-in for it. We just had a whiteboard, we threw out some phrases, we put it together, and it worked. It's who they are and how they want to be known as. The core team has remained the same. Now, the money's not great working as a Band 4 service desk analyst in the health service, but it's a good place to work. The rest of the team get on very well with each other. The crack is mighty, as we say over here. I'm not crediting the SDI with that, but it has helped with the continuity and purpose. We have built our success on the back of these statements. The metrics we use on a daily basis, and there are lots of metrics, that's the performance indicators. And the lovely people in SDI keep adding to them. I think that we're on our 3rd set of performance metrics that we're being marked against. and they do help us with the management of the incidents and the service requests. It helps if you have someone who's a bit OCD who can do that for you and interrogate the information and know what it is they're looking at and zero in. And luckily enough, we do have that. Our problem management and change management after rocky starts are now all well ingrained and adhered to. We have regular surveys of our service users and staff, and all coming back with positive feedback, 85, 90% positive feedback and we do them every 3 to 6 months. We try to do something which we're not really that good at, which is self-promotion. We take things for granted in IT. We see it as just part of our job. We very rarely sing our own praises or blow our own trumpet. Some of these things we really do. I mean, the likes of the surveys for both of our staff and our users, because the standard asks us to do it. We would have been in a worse position without having done them, but we only really do them because we've been told to. That's what I mean about the standard being our roadmap. It shows us what to do. We don't have to reinvent it or come up with it ourselves. This is what you do. This is how you do it. And if you do it well, then you get the recognition and the credit for it. One of the things that we just sort of feel a wee bit at is that the remuneration of our staff. We're a public sector service. We can't offer financial rewards. There are no bonuses here. But we came up with our sad sack days, our staff appreciation days as organised by a staff appreciation committee. To be honest, I think we come up with the acronym first. We started small and safely with a tea and coffee morning. I baked a chocolate cake. No one died or got sick. And it progressed from there. And I beg, borrow, or steal monies to fund on a quarterly or a biannual basis monies from various locations, primarily the pockets of the managers in the department, in order to fund these events. Last month was our 21st such event. A good time was had by all, though not necessarily the next day. The weather was great, which helped. I'm not sure where we would be if we hadn't gone down the SDI route. I don't know if we could have made it to this stage on our own without that guidance, without that support, without that roadmap. We probably would have, but it would probably take a heck of a lot more time to do that. It has given us a sense of pride and achievement. I do know that the other trusts over here in Northern Ireland look to us for leadership, whether they like to admit it or not, they do. In that sense, the mission statement and the vision statement have come true. But again, don't tell the SDI that. They'll just ask us to change it because we've reached that. It's a goal. We've done it. Move on now. I know for a fact that I haven't allocated or taken up all my time now. I probably rushed through that. I wanted to give you a feel for how our process was as opposed to going through the mechanics of it. It's a lot more fresh in Lisa's head, I'm sure, than it is in ours, because as I say, we did our first one 6 years ago. I've sat through presentations before, like I know most of you probably will have. I'll ask. I'm hoping the answer is no, but does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Cormac. We're just sort of looking through, seeing whether there's any questions being posted on there. So if we just linger for a few seconds and we'll try and get through any questions. Just waiting to hear from the organizer. Bear with me a second. But while we wait for any questions from any delegates, I sort of have one or two for you.
Yeah.
I know you said you hope there wasn't. I know you said you hope there wasn't.
I apologize again. I know that I didn't get my timings right. I'll not say it was a rush job, but it's been busy of late, and the presentation could have probably been a bit longer.
No, absolutely no problems with the presentation whatsoever. You mentioned it was important to you and your team to sort of get everybody to actually buy into the program. You know, that it's 100%. Not just. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you mentioned it wasn't just a sort of a management sort of tick box exercise, if you like.
No, definitely not.
What did you know, before you actually enrolled into the program, before you met our auditors and all of that sort of thing, how did you get your team behind the initial idea?
I think, like As I say, in my previous job, I had went through the ISO process, and it was my previous line manager who had instigated that. And at the time, as I said, I probably was jaded to it. I thought, why are we doing this? It's a waste of time. It's a paper exercise. There's not going to be any tangible benefit out of that other than you can say you have achieved the ISO standard. And that's more or less true. So when we had turned the corner here, when we knew we were back on top of things, and it wasn't any one Hollywood stroke which made it all hunky-dory again and make everything work well. It was a series of little measures, little tweaks, getting the processes embedded, getting the team on board, which made us turn that corner. I felt that at that stage, okay, our name out there was still mud. In the great unwashed of our self-service users, and I felt that we needed to do something so we could throw our hat on, put our hat on. Here, listen, we've been benchmarked. Although everybody has went through RPA, everybody has not had a nice 18 months to 3 years adjusting. And to be honest with you, the trust is still adjusting to RPA. I know that there are different service users who in different parts of the city do things, the treat patients in totally different ways, but for the same ailments. So RPA maybe didn't pan out the way everybody expected it to, but they did there. We had our processes down. We had merged the departments. We had to physically relocate the 5 departments to one central area. And once we had it turned around, I knew that some sort of certification, some sort of benchmark, some sort of standard would allow us to use that as a positive message to get out there. I knew that ISO was paper-based. I knew that if we had tried ISO, that my staff, and well, primarily my staff, would have felt that I did that. Why are we doing this as a paper exercise? As I say, I was aware of when I went looking online, Googled, I came across the HDI first for whatever reason, and then the SDI, and got very involved in that. Looked at the service desk analyst certification, undertook myself the service desk management course, and I was engaging at the time. And to be honest, I can't remember who our account manager was at the time, but it was he that recommended the service desk certification. And it was because it was practical. It was primarily because of the audit, primarily because of the SDI coming across and not taking everything on paper-based evidence. It was the interviews. It was, show me how you're doing this. Not don't show me a bit of paper that tells you here's the process. Show me how you're doing this. Let me talk to your staff about a range of topics. Let me talk to your service users about what they think. And again, like Lisa, we could have put up our friends, our neighbours as those interviewees, but we didn't. We made a conscious decision not. And I think it's either 3 to 4 interviews every audit, and we haven't had a repetition in the last 6 years. So granted, that's not a lot in an organisation of 20,000, but we did go out and we talked to different service groups, different service users, and those people who hadn't had a good service for whatever reason, or felt they hadn't got a good service initially, but which we were able then to change their perception, change their minds. They were some of the folk that we put up for them. I'm still getting constantly asked about audits and when the next audit is. On the back, and the SDI has helped us, sorry, but just because I mentioned the word audit, it's helped us in any number of different ways, with different security audits that we've had to undertake. When they come knocking on our door, asking us for standards, asking us for evidence, we're able to put out the SDI, we're able to put out the ISO, a show that of evidence of how we're following best practice, how we're following procedure, or how we're adhering to standards, and how we're trying to account for all of those things. The guy who took up my role after I was promoted, I asked him this morning, what works well for the SDI? Why do we take it? What works good? And he says, if we didn't have it, it would just be chaos. If we didn't have those written processes and procedures down, the place would just be chaos. It's an actual fact. He's obviously stating a fact. But when we're so ingrained now, I think you couldn't really run a service desk without processes and procedures. I don't know how anybody could. I take it as for granted and for read that that's how things just should be. So God help anybody out there who hasn't bought into that message. And again, like Lisa, the SDI is, I would sell its benefits to anybody who comes knocking.
Yeah, I think Lisa mentioned in her presentation as well that, you know, that document that's provided also provides as almost a manual, and I think she used the words, if all of us ran away, we'd still be able to run the service desk exactly the same way. You know, and you just sort of alluded to that as well. And, you know, as a result, you mentioned you're still sort of suffering from the legacy of 2009, I think it was, you said.
Yeah, the bad old days.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your customer perception now you've gone through that program and sustained the program? How has it improved things from your customer's point of view?
Well, that's what I mean. Although we ourselves, we felt we'd turned the corner by about the time of our audits in around 2010, the end of 2010, we started thinking about it into 2011 and getting ready for it and going for it in 2012. At that stage, we felt we were ready for it. Our users probably, as I say, didn't have a good perception of us, but since then that has changed enormously. We publish our metrics to them now. They can see how we're doing. We have just finally put our service request portal out there, which is the start of our automation process. They can see things are happening a lot more quickly. We are a lot more responsive. Our service, to be fair, whenever we run a survey, the response isn't great. You remember getting about a 6% response out of the 20,000 odd users. We haven't got the stage yet where we're offering raffle prizes, but we might have to think along those lines to get a better return. But they're positive. Back in the bad old days, as a sort of a joke, not like the pop-up service desk that Lisa was talking about. I went out and ran a road show. And jokingly, I brought a stab-proof vest out with me the first time I went out, the first couple of times I went out, because our name was not well liked at the time. But that joke worked. It wore off. People are used to us being out and about now. Our mobile team can walk safely around the trust without fear of getting hijacked. We've put in again because we have a new director. And because we retained our service desk award, they asked us to put in for the chairman's award again. I don't think we'll win. I don't think we'll be shortlisted because we've been there, done that. But the fact that we've retained it for that length of time shows that our director feels that it's worthwhile putting that in and raising our profile. So other than the positive feedback that I received, the compliments that I received, the very, 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 very few negative comments I received, I can honestly say that the service desk, especially the service desk, it's that friendly, professional aspect of our mission statement that comes across very, very well. I have nothing but good reports about our service desk.
Good, and they always say that people are more prone to actually log more, I use the word complaints lightly, but you know, are less likely to compliment the service. Absolutely, yeah.
Correct.
But I think we have a couple of questions from our delegates, which I think Sadie is going to put to you, Sadie.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, sorry, I was just grabbing the questions. So Ilyas asked, what other incentive ideas do you have going forward? Would you consider gamification?
We have looked at it, and I don't know if it's a public sector persona, or I don't know if it's Northern Ireland even, or if it is just public sector here. But we don't feel that it would fit here. We're very cynical, which is another reason why we don't blow our own trumpet. We don't self-promote. I don't think that the gamification, we have looked at it, I don't think it would work at this stage. The organisation, and even probably the maturity level of the rest of the organisation wouldn't be up for it.
Okay, and I have a second question from Dimitri, who asked, the biggest challenge in changing the direction of the desk from a downward spiral, the biggest challenge in changing the direction of the desk from a downward spiral to where it is right now. What was the biggest factor in changing user perception? Pieces of paper won't go a long way.
Well, I think that, as I said, we had turned the corner with regard to those very high open incident levels. We had turned the corner. We felt that we had it under control, and the reason that it spiraled out of control, or one of the reasons it spiraled out of control, was because of the RPA, all the merger of the 5 trusts. It took me the guts of 18 months to centralize the service desk. The services were being pulled here, there, and everywhere. There was little or no structure within the trust because appointments had yet to be made from the top down. So it really was a horrible time. It was lots of little small tweaks. I know that for a period of time, maybe 6 months, I was making changes to how we did things and seeing if it worked or not. But if it didn't work, I quickly changed it. I know that service desk means we have a weekly service desk meeting. I would say to them, okay, we're changing this now, and the gripes would come back. But you changed that just 2 weeks ago, and I said no, but it's not working, so we'll change it again. It was lots of little tweaks that helped us turn things around. The stabilization and the maturity of the desk as a whole, then, and then when that was reflected across the trust, that's what turned it around for us. But the certification of both the SDI and the ISO give us something to help promote ourselves. It was, listen, the SDI say we're not a bad service desk, we're not a 5-star or a 4-star yet, we still hope for that 4-star, but we're a 3-star certified service desk. These folk tell us so. We benchmark across these 9 standards, and I'm going to say that I'll stand up for this service desk and say that we provide a good service.
It's thank you, Cormac. It's it's not easy to actually achieve 3-star. Having helped you go through it personally as well. So it's a huge achievement. Before we come to a close, Lisa sort of ended her presentation with a piece of advice, which is be transparent to the auditors and the account managers. What would your piece of advice be finally to all the delegates looking to adopt the programme?
It's not so much, well, I suppose it could be called advice. Go for it. Do not be afraid of it. Although to my mind, it was a no-brainer at the time going for it, there was a tad reluctance on the part of my line manager at the time to do so, because he felt that we weren't ready for it. He felt that we wouldn't gain the certification, but my response to that is, we won't know until we try. We're proud of what we've done. We're good, honest, hard workers. We're persevering with here, and we need to sing our praises. So that's why we went for it at the end. Do not be afraid. If at the preliminary audit you fail, then that's fine. Crack on again. The roadmap is there. The standards are there. You can see what you have to do to achieve it. Just go for it.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And also for, if there are some delegates listening in that share that same worry and fear that Cormac just explained, that they're not ready for it, we do have a self online assessment which you are able to do, which will give you a good idea of where we think you may stand. Only if you ask those questions very honestly will it give you, true results. So if there's anybody that shares the same sort of concerns Cormac and his team did, then there's no harm trying that self-assessment just to see where you think you may sit. So perfect. Thank you ever so much, Cormac. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
No problem at all. So the time is now 4:25. So we have finished 5 minutes ahead of time, which is absolutely perfect. So we're now going to have a short 15-minute break where you can all grab a cup of coffee, biscuit, and if we sort of all sign back online for 2:45, ready for our next speaker, which will be Paige Smith from Air IT. Thank you very much. See you at Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the SDC virtual event. I hope you enjoyed your teas and coffees, answering a couple of emails. So I'll move on straight away to our next speaker, which is Paige Smith. Paige is the Service Delivery Manager for Air IT. Air IT started their service desk certification program about 10 months ago and received 3 stars. She will be sharing why Air IT decided to adopt the program and much more. So I'll hand you over to Paige, who will take us through to 3:15. Thank you, Paige. I'm not, Paige, can you hear us? Can you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, Paige. My heart was beating
Brilliant,
quite
thank
fast
you.
there for a couple of minutes.
No,
no,
no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks. So hello everyone. As Tom mentioned, my name is Paige Smith. I'm the Service Delivery Manager for Air IT. So I'm just going to talk you through a little bit about why we've gone through the SDC certification, our journey, and where we're at today. So just to start off with a little bit of who we are. So Air IT is a managed service provider established in 2005. We're currently at around 52 employees, and 34 members of those employees are part of service delivery and projects. So unlike a lot of people and a lot of teams and service desks that go through the SDI certification, we're not an internal service desk only. We provide support to 148 different managed clients, and we are a multi-client service desk because of that. So our one service delivery team offers support to all of our 48 clients, all at the same level. So unlike having an internal service desk department, we had a bit of a challenge with SDI because we were a multi-client team for an MSP, and something that's slightly different to what the SDI normally have. But a few things around sort of why we chose to go through SDI standard. So mainly a lot of the reasons that other people have said today in terms of aligning the work to the best practice, embracing the standard that isn't just about processes and procedures, but also looks at various different things such as you know, employee satisfaction, environmental aspects, all various things that programs such as ITIL and ISO don't look at as much. So we really wanted to have something that looks at all elements of a service delivery team. The program as well helps identify clear and measurable benchmarks, which is something that we really wanted to do within our department. And we also wanted to show an investment in the program with something that will encourage our employee satisfaction further, and also help us deliver a more comprehensive and much more improved customer service and overall customer experience. So we set ourselves a goal around 10 months ago, as Tom mentioned there, about when we first started. We set ourselves a goal of 3 stars. So we wanted to achieve 3 stars within our first assessment. We thought it'd be something that would be hard work, but also easily achievable, because we did honestly believe that with a lot of the stuff that we currently already had, we could do it. Little did we know when we actually came to our assessment, which was in October last year, that we weren't actually anywhere near 3 stars. We were more around 1. So we did our assessment and we achieved a score of 2.25, which under the SDI is not certified. So you have to achieve a minimum of, I believe it's a 2.3 in each area and an overall 2.5. So we were quite below the target, and it gave us a bit of a shake up and a bit of a awakening around what we actually needed to do. So a lot of the things that we found when we went through our assessment was that although we knew we had it, we also knew we couldn't evidence it, and that was the key part that let us down here. So as part of your assessment, where the SDI will come in for 2 days, they'll explain to you that you need to be as honest as possible for you to get a true score at the end of your assessment. So the honesty needed us to say, we do have this, but no, we can't evidence it, or no, we don't have this at all. which is what led us to get that score of 2.25 in assessment. So we already got some very key observations out of the assessment, things such as considering implementing a strategic plan for 2018 earlier on, document all operational management activity within a service desk operational plan. So again, that's something that Lisa touched upon in her presentation. It's something that we also didn't have and realised we needed to get to achieve the SDI standard. We also want to look at evaluating our customer experience and implementing an overall customer experience program because of that. We also needed somewhere to centrally store all of our continual service improvement initiatives, because as well, as part of our assessment, we found that we did plenty of things that were innovative and that were improvement initiatives, but we had nowhere where we actually kept that information, where we could track it, record it, and actually trend on it. We needed to review our documentation for effectiveness and accuracy as well, because we did find that some of our documentation was a bit dated. And then a few other parts there as well. Consider launching a talent management program. So again, at Air IT, we have a lot of internal progression and a lot of stuff we're very proud of, but we don't actually have a central talent management program to manage an individual's progression within our business. And then finally, one of the other suggestions we had on there was to look at defining our services in a service catalogue, which again, from an ITSM world is quite standard. It's very ITIL-based talk, but from an MSP background, it's not something that we were very familiar with. So we really had to broaden our horizons and delve into the ITSM space to understand what that was. So in terms of what 1 star means, so obviously 1 star isn't even a certification, it's not certified, but the SDI, and this is a few bullet points directly taken from a presentation of theirs, actually define it as a few of those things. So they might start to make sense to maybe some people that are listening that are thinking, should I be going through the certification? You might actually look and go, well, actually, are we 1 star? Are we firefighting, unable to make change and influence operations? Do we feel like we've got a lack of process definition or high staff turnover? I mean, some of these things, I can safely say we didn't have high staff turnover. We don't particularly have, we don't have low customer satisfaction, but it was things, these are certain things that 1 star does make you think about, and it starts to make you realise where it sees you at. So to get yourselves up to a 2 or 3 or 4 star rating, there's a lot of different barriers that need to come down. So after our assessment, we sort of had to come up with a bit of a plan. So as Lisa already mentioned, you get a very in-depth audit assessment report after your 2-day audit. Now I've put in my presentation here, read it in depth, then read it again, because it really is a really lengthy, comprehensive document. I mean, ours certainly was, because it listed from top to bottom everything that we said we'd had and everything that we said we hadn't, which gave us enough points to create an entire action plan around all the initiatives that we needed before going through with our audit. So a few of the things that we needed to do: hold regular SDI meetings with our team to keep the momentum up and complete actions. So we had an action log of roughly 100 or so actions, all within different people. For myself, for our service desk manager, for our MD, every person within our business was in one way or another tied into this certification and had an action to achieve so that we could get ourselves where we wanted to by the time our audit came around. I've also put there implement changes across the business with management buy-in. So as part of the program, you'll find that there's a lot of changes that you need to make, potentially a lot of new processes that need implementing. And in a business our size specifically, it's very difficult to do that if you don't have the buy-in from your management team, if you don't have a strong MD, CEO who's going to encourage you to get the work done and to actually allow you to make those changes. They are changes that don't just affect the service desk sometimes and can affect the entire business. So it's really important to have their buy-in. It's also key, I personally think, to run an in-house audit before your audit. So this is something that I did with my team roughly 2 months before our audit, which was at the start of July. I basically did an entire dummy run of the audit, so go through the standard from top to bottom, effectively try and replicate what we were asked during our assessment and see if we could get ourselves a higher score. So that included bringing all the evidence to the table, and if we hadn't have done that, I believe in our actual audit, we may have received a lower score because we did identify during the in-house audit a few areas where we still hadn't made those changes in time for the audit. And then the final point there is finalised evidence. So Lisa spoke about different ways of submitting your evidence to the SDI, but the key factor for me is actually just making sure you have got it all, because it really is a large amount of evidence that's needed for each concept and each criteria. So to get all of that in place, ready for your audit, is a big job. So that's definitely something that that everyone should be really planning for if they're going through the certification. So the next sort of part of the presentation is I want to just talk you through some of the improvements that we've done as a business as part of getting us through SDI. So some of these things are items that we already had in our agenda that SDI sort of pushed us towards doing, and some of them are completely new things that we'd not thought about and have really improved our business. So to start with, one of the improvements we made was to implement a CSI register. So unlike the ITSM world, we don't use sort of standard ITSM tool sets such as Remedy or ServiceNow. We actually use a PSA tool for MSPs. The tool we use is called ConnectWise, and it has a lot of functions which are excellent for MSPs, but sometimes cause a bit of a struggle if we're trying to adapt to some more ITSM frameworks. But what we were able to do very easily within this tool set was create a CSI register on what's called a service board. The board, as you can see there, lists several CSI initiatives. That's just a screen grab there of a few that we've got. And it was a central location where we can log all of our initiatives. We can give them a source, whether they've come from team meetings, from individuals, from customer feedback, and various different places like this. And we were also able to input things such as the status of it. So as you can see, they've all got a status at the moment, bar a couple have completed. We can also track which ones are in progress, which ones are new, and which ones are sort of a pending approval or anything like that. So this was a huge improvement for us. We really do pride ourselves on being innovative. It's one of our values, and it's something that we really wanted to embrace as part of working towards SDI, the general improvement that we could get using the program. So it really did make sense that the first step for us was to implement not just a CSI register, but an entire CSI process, which is followed by the entire business and not just service desk, to allow us all to achieve and actually log properly our continual service improvement initiatives. So something that we've really benefited as well is the reporting. We use a third-party reporting tool called BrightGauge, and it can connect straight into ConnectWise for us. It allows us to then pull out all of this data from ConnectWise into dashboards, scorecards, and various reports to allow us to see exactly how much we're doing in terms of our CSI. Another improvement initiative which we looked at was our customer experience. So I mentioned at the start when we did our assessment that we actually got given a good amount of feedback around our customer experience program. So again, as a business, we believed we did a lot for our customer service journey, but we weren't really sure in terms of our customer experience program what we did. So what was the overall campaign? What did we do from start to finish for our customer? So what we did as one of our improvement initiatives is we looked into our biannual customer satisfaction surveys. And what we found was that although we did surveys constantly, and we did biannual, which is for us 6 monthly, we also do event surveys at the end of each ticket, we never really had a full report which fed back to our customer to say, thank you for your feedback, these are the results, and this is what we're going to do off the back of it. Therefore, we created our You Said We Did campaign. So this is something that we only launched in January, again, off the back of feedback from our SDI certification. And we've now done, again, since our second biannual results. So what this has allowed us to do is actually measure our customer satisfaction results accurately and actually give ourselves a target that we can try to trend towards. So the You Said We Did campaign details, like I said, things that we have already done and are doing for our customers to really help improve their customer experience, all off the back of information they've given us. So if a customer explained to us that they didn't understand a certain piece of software that we use, we ran webinars to allow the customer to get a better understanding, and all that information has been put into this document, which was published to all of our clients and all of our customers to really give them a real insight in terms of what we've done with the information that they've given us. Another element of our customer experience improvements that we've made have been to report on customer complaints, compliments and suggestions. So again, previously we looked at complaints like a lot of businesses do, and we also looked at our customer satisfaction, but we never really measured compliments and also suggestions as sort of individual measures, and that's something that is directly asked for in the SDI standard. So what we were able to do then is look at reporting on results from our event surveys, which is the image on the left there. So we use a third-party tool called Crewho, which allows customers to give a good, neutral or bad smiley face at the end of each ticket. So when a ticket is closed, they'll receive the survey, which will then ask them to give us that feedback. When we find that someone has also given us some comments on that feedback, as you can see there with the second comment, we then filter that again into our PSA tool, ConnectWise, where we log our customer complaints, compliments and suggestions. So as well as the CSI board that I mentioned at the other slide, we also now have a CCS board. So it's a central location to store all of our complaints, compliments and suggestions and give us a real insight into how many we're receiving, if that we're receiving the amount that we've set ourselves in our target, and if we're actually achieving the amount of customer satisfaction that we want to be. So with all that tied in, we were then able to really look at creating our overarching customer experience program. And because of that, we then developed some customer experience KPIs specifically. So the image on the right are our customer experience KPIs. We have customer satisfaction, service desk CSAT, golden KPIs, which are a set of 12 KPIs the service desk work towards, number of complaints raised, our client retention, and also our employee satisfaction, because we do believe that overall, if our employees are happy, our customers will be happy. Something interesting to point out as well, just from looking at those gauges on that slide there, is that when we did have our audit with the SDI, they also did look at the sort of measures we were reporting on and what targets we set ourselves, and helped us become more realistic, so that actually is 80% the right target for some of those, and we can work towards looking at bringing them where they need to be so that we're not being too hard on ourselves. But to follow on to the next CSI initiative that we got out of SDI was actually more improvement on our employee satisfaction. So at Air IT, we do use gamification, and we again use it through our tool Crewho. So what it does is it allows the team to reward one another internally with badges. So I can give a badge to any colleague within the business and vice versa, based on any specific sort of outstanding or above and beyond work that they've done. And the service desk team also receive books, so badges, off the back of CSAT surveys. So when a customer receives a CSAT survey and an employee gets a good smiley face returned, our team receive 10 books, which is the currency of Crewho. These books then amount to real money, which the company have invested into this tool to allow the staff to buy certain prizes, which you can see in the image below. Just to point out, they are some of the lower cost prices. That we also do have higher end things such as iPads and weekends away. So it gives people an incentive to save, and also gives them an incentive to go above and beyond and to really earn those badges there. The main initiative, however, that we actually gathered from SDI, because this is something that we did already have in place, but the main initiative and improvement that we made was that we never actually looked at the effects of this informal reward and recognition and really reviewed the impact that it was having. So what we decided to do was send out a survey to the entire business around this Crewho tool. We asked for improvement suggestions, what they did like, what they didn't, including if the prizes were anything that they would like to buy, if actually every day they were going on it and thinking this isn't even anything that I'd like. So SDI helped open our eyes to the fact that although we were doing this great form of gamification, we weren't actually looking at what our employees wanted. And to increase our employee satisfaction, we genuinely wanted to get out there a good survey which had good content and could actually ask our team what they wanted out of this tool. And the results that we got back were really useful. We were able to make amendments and actually put in place what the team wanted, which has seen a nice increase in our employee satisfaction as well. Finally, another one of the improvements that we put in place as part of our SDI certification was to introduce early life support. So something that we found with our projects and service delivery team, being a smaller business, was that we didn't have a formal process to hand over a project to service delivery, mainly because a lot of the time it was simply that person who had worked on the project would just let the service desk team know because they know everybody in there. But what we really found that we needed was an actual process to ease that transition from projects to service desk, so that we could avoid any issues and actually try and eliminate any teething problems that there always are with projects coming into service desk. So the process involves having conference calls with newer clients when they come on board, and it's to discuss their specific early life support report, which details the information about their service desk usage since go live. So it allows us, myself and the service desk manager, to speak with the client, which again helps build our relationship, and then actually get them to understand if they're happy with the service we're providing, and if they're not, to feed that back to us in an open forum and allow them to happily communicate and tell us where we need to improve and what it is that isn't quite working for them. So the process lasts for about 2 months and involves an exit criteria. An exit criteria is then agreed with the client to confirm they're happy with the transition and that they're willing to sort of go into what we would just call sort of, you know, day-to-day support. So the process has really improved our initial client relationships with service delivery, and it's offered a great platform for that early review stage. So we found a lot of our clients that were brought on new were sort of waiting for their first account management meeting or their first catch up with the projects guys before they actually really got to feel how they were doing. But we wanted to introduce a secondary step there, which would allow them to firstly get to know the service delivery department, but also to feed back their honest opinion on anything that we were doing correct and also wrong, so that we could make sure that we were giving them the best service possible. So we managed to put all this together again within our PSA tool by creating a project plan. So we created early life support project plans, and it is a set template which we can then assign to every new client that we get. It's very easy and quick for us to do, which is again another reason why we were quite happy to take this initiative on board, because it really does show a huge improvement within our service. So taking you now on to sort of our audit. So our audit took place not too long ago now, just at the start of July. We'd already sent off all of our evidence, however, some changes did need to be made. So I received a bit of a terrifying phone call the week before our audit from our auditor, Hamish, advising that the evidence we'd submitted for the first concept wasn't quite what he was looking for. Now, thankfully, because Hamish had done that and he'd got in touch and let us know that we'd misinterpreted it slightly wrong, we were able to send over the information he was looking for. But it really does show just how difficult this standard can be to interpret. I sort of read it and reread it and looked over it a million times, and there are still elements of it which we thought, does that apply to us? Is it something that necessarily we actually need to do? But it really did help to have our auditor actually give us that advice so close to our audit to allow us to send more evidence over. Now, during the 4-day audit, our evidence was discussed, and as we moved towards more 3- and 4-star territory, we found that some of the questions were actually a lot harder to answer. Things like, were our processes actually embedded, and were the improvements actually showing real improvement within the business as well as just the service desk. Lo and behold, though, on our actual audit, we did manage to achieve a 3-star rating. So we had a total score of 3.13, which we were really over the moon with, as we received the customer-led service desk certification there. We did already get given a few recommendations going forward to increase that scoring, as our next step now will be a surveillance within the next sort of 11 or so months. And one of the recommendations, just to give you an example, was the use of to implement a project management process. So again, this is something that we actually did believe we had. However, due to our interpretation of the standard and speaking with our auditor during our audit, we found that we weren't actually doing what the standard defined. So that's an initiative that we are already starting to work on so that we can get ourselves a higher score in our surveillance. So again, what does 3-star mean? This is the sort of SDI snippet of what they say 3-star is, and it's something that we actually do believe is much more aligned than what we got at our assessment. So having CSFs that underpin our strategy, having a customer surveys and reviews, KPIs that are linked to those CSFs, doing staff reward and recognition, having our ITSM systems integrated, and consistently having a high service experience, which is something that we really did pride ourselves on. So what's next for us? Now we've got to wait, really. We are looking now for our audit report to come through. So post your audit, you will receive another detailed audit report, which will tell you again what you did and didn't achieve during that audit, so that you can actually put another action plan together and begin working towards any new initiatives that you need to increase your scoring and continually improve across your business. As mentioned, that will be in 12 months, but we are already making steps to get there. And I think the key takeaway there is that overall, the whole element of this program for us is to just continually improve and keep enhancing our best practices. So just to summarise our experience, we chose to do SDI to improve our service desk and the business overall with best practices and improved employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction. We've implemented improvements across the entire business, not just our service desk, and they've already been showing huge benefits. And we have invested a lot of time and effort to reach that 3-star goal. It's very easy during what seems like a long 9 months between assessment and audit to put the handbook down and to sort of get tangled up into day-to-day work, but it really does need the investment from either a project leader, but mainly the business as a whole, to actually drive you to where you need to be if you set yourself a goal of getting either 2 or 3 stars on the audit. So we are continually improving, and we're trying to find more opportunities for CSI initiatives throughout the SDI standard. And as mentioned previously, we are now preparing for our surveillance in around 11 months' time. So just to finish off, I just listed a few tips here for anyone that's going to be going through the SDC program. So be organised is a huge factor in it. It takes a lot of organisation to not just have the assessment and to arrange the audit, but to actually put all the improvement initiatives in place and get all the actions ticked off. It's a very long piece of work, and it really does need a lot of organisation from start to finish. Consider a resource who'll have the time to dedicate to the project. I fortunately actually only joined Air IT in October last year, so I was suitably placed to run this project, being sort of newer to the business but not having anything already on my plate that would distract me too much. So consider looking at a resource who is actually going to have the time to dedicate to this entire project, and really don't underestimate the time requirement that it will take to complete all the work. As Lisa mentioned hers, they gave themselves a 6-month target. We also did the same. We initially thought we'd be able to do our audit within the first 6 months after assessment, but we quickly found that we needed the full 9 months before we would even be ready because of the sheer amount of work we needed to do. Prepare as much evidence as possible and make sure it's all sent off in advance, because it really will save you a lot of time during your audit. If your auditor hasn't seen any evidence that they believe they want to, they will ask for it on the 4-day audit, which will then make some of the day a little bit more difficult if you're having to also find evidence. So make sure you send off as much as possible in advance. Read the standard continuously and really do understand it. As I've briefly mentioned before, it is very open to interpretation, and I think having read through it 2 or 3 times on the same page can really change your perspective on it. So give it a good read and make sure you really understand it before going through the standard. And then finally, it can't be done alone. So I think each presentation so far today has mentioned this, but it really does need investment from the entire business, and they need to be encouraged to see the huge benefits, because there really are a lot, and we already, having just gone through our audit, have seen huge benefits. So I'm really looking forward to see what else we can do with this program within the next 12 months and then the following 12 months as we continue to go through our surveillances. So thank you very much for listening, and if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paige. A really good final slide there with a list of tips. I was going to ask you exactly the same as I've asked all the other presenters, what would be your biggest tip, but you sort of answered all of those in your last slide, which is perfect. One point for me was the communication that you had with your auditor, Hamish, a week before the actual surveillance audit. and how that point alone stresses the importance of building up good relationships with the SDI trusted advisors and the auditors. Because if that phone call hadn't been made, then, as you said, you would have found the actual audit very much more difficult with running around trying to produce more evidence. So use the auditor, and you know, using the auditor's experience, advice, and your account manager from SDI using their advice as well to actually help you through the whole program is a continuing message that's coming out of all the speakers this afternoon, which is fantastic. But I have a question for you from one of our delegates, Paige. It's by, and forgive any pronunciation mistakes here, but it's by Arlette Wald. He's asked if you mind commenting more about the improvements in early life support.
Yes, certainly. So early life support, it's a part of the ITIL framework loosely, but it's basically the section between a project going live from sort of being delivered in the projects team and then handing over to service operations. So the improvement initiative that we did was to implement a 2-month program for each new client. So we're still working on making this live for all projects in terms of small deployments, but for any of our new onboardings now, what we have is a 2-month program of early life support where a client is still being managed by the service desk, but has weekly catch-ups with the service delivery manager via a conference call, where we will go through a report which only looks at a snapshot. So it's a quick report to show the last week of service, and it will look at how many tickets they've had with us, what those issues have been about, if they've had any, have there been any project issues that are still reoccurring off the back of the project, any surveys that they've sent through to us, if they're positive, negative, and anything that we need to address. And it's really, to be honest, the main purpose of the process is to initiate ease of transition. Is to allow a customer to feel like they haven't just been taken on board by their onboarding engineer and then dumped into service delivery with operations. It's to make them feel like they've had a smoother transition, and to also make them aware that we're aware, sorry, a lot of words there, but to make them realise that there are growing pains as part of a new project. Things might not always run smoothly, but we're there to hear them out and to make sure that we can get it right. It's almost a 2-month period of accept that there might be a few issues, but we promise you at the end of that 2 months, it will be perfect. So that's why we've put it in place, and that's what the main program is around for us.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I hope that answered your question. If anybody has any more questions, then please post them on the questions section of the webinar. Thank you, Paige. That was really interesting. Thank you very much.
Great.
No problem. So just before we introduce our final speaker, just to let you know that we'll be sharing a short survey after the final speaker, which we would be very grateful if you could fill in. As I mentioned right at the beginning, this is our first virtual event for the Service Desk Standard, and your feedback really helps us improve, change, ready for the next one. Continual service improvement, which is an ongoing theme this afternoon. So if you could please just take time at the end to complete that would be, SDI would be really grateful for that. So our final speaker is Lisa Edwards from CGI. Lisa is the Service Desk Operations Manager for CGI. CGI started their certification with us back in 2012 and maintained it's an impressive 5-star certification, which they've also sort of sustained as well. So I'll hand you over to Lisa again. If you have any questions for me, any of our speakers about SDC and the standard, please comment on the webpage or email hello@sdi-e.com, and we'll include some useful links in any of the follow-up emails, including all of our speakers' presentations as well. So over to Lisa from CGI. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Hi all. So I've got quite a few topics to cover today, a lot of which I know have been covered by our other hosts, and I'm hoping that you'll see a lot of continuation in the way that we go forward and implement things, and also some new suggestions that you can take away as well. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a background as to who CGI are. So we're a global IT outsourcing company. There are 74,000 of us across the world, 84% of which are shareholders. So we are actual owners of the company, which is really important to us. We always say if somebody has a difficult task ahead, just remember that you have 74,000 professionals behind you that are willing to back you going forward. The service desk then, we have over 180 clients, and that equates to roughly 180,000 contacts per month, which is across a multitude of channels, which I'll explain into a little bit more detail. We are a 24/7 support, 365 days a year. We have a customer satisfaction rate of between 90 to 95%. We're always aiming for the 95%, and a 95% first-time fix rate against our fixable calls. So that just gives you a little bit of background into the scale of it. In the UK alone, we have about 5,000 members at the moment, and our aim is to grow that to 15,000 members in the next 5 years. So we've got a big challenge ahead of us. Our clients come from multiple industries, so that can include health, energy and utilities, government, financial services. So it's a really good mix for us to get our teeth sunk into. So I just want to talk a little bit about our certification journey. As it was mentioned earlier, this is our 9th year now with SCI, and we've held the 5-star for 6 consecutive years. And I just wanted to find out sort of why the SCI journey has been so important, what it means to us. And it's slightly multi-layered in the fact that it not only benefits us when we're going to new clients, because to put your 5-star on a bid and to go out to new clients and say, look, we've had external validation, we've gone through a vigorous audit process, and external auditors have come in and they've provided us this feedback through a very transparent audit process where they're talking to multiple levels, both internal and external, is a really big hit with our clients. But it's also the existing clients that we've got. It's knowing that standard's being validated year on year. So it's something that gives them a lot of confidence in us as well, to know that we're collaborating with experts in our field who are sharing best practice across sort of multiple industries. But not just that, sort of from a personal side for Service Desk, many of our innovative solutions have actually come from the STI annual conference. So we're able to look at industry standard tools and get recommendations to our audits and through the conference to allow us to keep going from strength to strength. So in terms of company growth, these are some of the companies that we've taken on in the past 5 years, which we now provide IT outsourcing to. On the right-hand side then is sort of some of the pictures that just summarise a typical go live for us. So to sort of celebrate a new client, we'll always have decorations and competitions and some form of cake or sweet or fruit or whatever we can find that's associated. For the merge of one of our Scottish contracts, we had sort of a mixture of Welsh cakes and everything else. So that was a really good fun day. But on the more sort of serious side, we also have additional support from our transition team, who are people that have actually gone up, they've done the knowledge transfer on client site, and then they'll sit with us for a period of weeks to make sure that Service Desk is fully embedded in all the existing processes and creating our new. But also we create fun competitions for the desk. So we'll make it a little bit of fun. We'll have a CSS competition for people, which means that actually our clients and our members are fully engaged from the start, and they recognise that we're taking this seriously, we're giving them sufficient training, but also they're having a bit of fun out of it, because normally when your members are happy is when they'll get the best output for our clients. So that's a really important element to us. Some of you may have noticed the Ready Steady Glasgow article there. So part of the competition that we did was a pen to find who could find the best Glasgow pen, and that was the one that was chosen across from Service Desk, and the client really loved that because it showed that we were engaging on more of a personal level and actually explaining to our members who they are, what their business needs are, but also why their jobs are important and the impact they can have on society as a whole. So this is something that's that's fairly new to us, and again, this is on a global platform. But we have taken on multiple accounts in the past 5 years, and as part of that, we've started creating global case studies. So this means that if any of our colleagues are going out to a new bid, they don't just have sort of the standard bid materials to them, but they actually have evidence to back it. So they can go, and if it's somebody of a similar industry or a similar scale of size, they can go into our case study section and they can actually see sort of what we did really well, but also the lessons that we learnt during that journey. So that's been sort of a fantastic thing to have in a locally targeted area where everybody has access to. But basically we can go in now on the next client and all of our material is already there to hand if they're asking for evidence, and we've already got examples of how we've overcome difficult discussions or challenges, union discussions as an example. It's all in the case studies that we can rely on heavily. And like I say, that's not just for us, that's for our service delivery team, our transition team. Everybody's got access to it. So that when they're talking on behalf of CGI and not just of their particular area. So customer satisfaction. Our standard customer satisfaction survey is 5 standard questions, but we also have the option for the client to create up to 5 bespoke questions. So this could be just application specific. It could be for an interim period, do an application change or a go live of a new project as an example. But we find that the 5 questions work very well. Some clients choose to opt for more, and some clients will actually just go for the smiley face option that you can see on the top. So our health client, as an example, they will not spend the time filling in a lot of commentary because simply if they're in A&E, they haven't got the opportunity to do so. So the smiley face approach, as we call it, actually works far better for them. Because it's a quick and easy way, and then when they have the time we can contact them and actually go through the process with them. And some of our clients, we're always looking for changes on this and how we can fit better into their business. So for some of our clients, they're lawyers and they love to write us a 2-page essay. That's absolutely fine, this format works for them. But for others then, they actually would prefer to go off a happiness meter. So they don't like the idea of any negative connotation being in there from the start. They want to put a positive connotation in the client's mind from the start, so they go on a happiness meter, and then if they drop through the happiness meter, they have to explain why. So that's a really good, quite new solution that is starting to be integrated on some of our accounts. In terms of our target then for customer satisfaction, as I said earlier, we target 90%. We average 95%, and some of our contracts are actually averaging between 97 to 98% at the moment. So we do have a very high success rate. We do always believe that if you're striving for 100% customer satisfaction, then you tend to have clients out there that aren't happy, but they're just not telling you. So it is important for us that we take all of the constructive feedback on board so that we can actually work from that. And as part of it, we have a 24-hour response rate. So the reports that we receive are run daily. And each of our managers for their individual client will get a report, and they will have to ring people who've left constructive feedback within 24 hours. And then they will collate that information. That will go to service delivery so they can sit that down with the client. But also on our side, we have a champion role, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on later, which collate it to see how we can progress and grow from service desk. Just in terms of our client, and I'm sure this is something that everybody's very familiar with, but it's always worth sort of reiterating. We have both a mixture of going to client site, but also clients visiting us. It's very often when you go to client side that you get absorbed in the culture, and that's such a fantastic experience, especially for your members, because they then understand sort of the impact and the priority of the work they do. Like I said earlier, our health accounts, when you send somebody to A&E where they have A&E one side and the children's ward the next, they realise that actually their priority is a priority to life. That is a serious sentence. So it does have a big impact on them, and that's very vital. But it's also the client coming to CGI. With all the will in the world, we can go down there and try and explain everything that we've done over the past year, but we would be there for weeks. So sometimes it's nice for them to actually sort of step away from the business, come down to us, have a day where they can tour around the service desk and just kind of get engulfed in the atmosphere and understand a little bit more about the CGI culture, not just understanding the client culture. We do have daily, weekly, monthly conference calls with our clients, and that can be everything from just a simple check-in to if it's a project go live and actually we're updating them every hour, or it could be sort of a cab call pre-change. There's a lot of different formats that it comes in, but the main tie-in there is our engagement with service delivery teams. So we're always in constant communication with them. We let them know if anything's happening, we let them know if there's any changes coming, and they reciprocate that to us as well. So our staff and culture. When our staff first come into CGI, they are put through a 3-week induction course. And as part of that, they will have a sort of standard core login training, and that can be across Remedy or ServiceNow at the moment. They're the 2 things that we offer. But also they'll go through customer service training, pitch and tone training, and a bit of group work and sort of working on customer service techniques, different learning styles. So there's quite a lot sort of packed into that 3 weeks, but it's very, very beneficial for them. When they come out then, they have to do contract training. So as I said, we've got 180 contracts, and that is a lot of information for people to take in. So they tend to get put onto a dedicated desk, and they will have to have contract training. Now, contract training doesn't necessarily mean that it's technical training. Contract training means actually understanding our client's business. And that can involve just sort of background history into the client and what their priorities are. That could be a client site visit. That could be a review of our recent projects so that they understand some of the ongoing impacts. But each of that contract training has to be signed off. They'll then go through a separate quality workshop and a technical workshop with our second line support team that sit on desk. So they do have quite a lot within the first month before they actually go out then and start their buddying process. Now, once they're on the desk, they'll have a buddy assigned to them, and they also have an internal process document called an analyst guide. So the analyst guide is everything that they need to do sort of day in, day out, just to sort of sit down and start. So that can be everything from how do they submit their timesheets, how do they ask for a holiday request. So the simple things that as a more experienced person in the business we could take for granted. So that's just a quick reference guide that they find really useful. In terms of the buddying process then, when they first come on, they will sit with an experienced buddy. We won't ask them to do anything because we want them to be comfortable. So they'll sit back, they'll make notes, but the buddy will be the one who's speaking and typing all the notes into Remedy or ServiceNow. As they get more comfortable then, our new starter will speak while the buddy types. We'll then reverse that role, and then once the buddy's more comfortable again, they will both speak and type. I know that I've mentioned a couple of times when they're comfortable, but that's actually a really important point for us. We won't force anybody onto the phones before they feel comfortable to do so. So we understand that for some people it may take a little bit of a longer learning curve than others, and that's absolutely fine. We wouldn't want to sort of force them into something too quickly. Once they do feel that they're confident to sort of go solo, then we will put them in between 2 existing buddies. And effectively that just means that they're on their own, they're talking to the client, they're doing all of the work, but actually if they do need a little bit of a support network either side, they've got people that they can turn to as a quick reference guide. And through our induction, the buddying process and their probation, they get a certificate at each stage. So that's just like a nice little sort of welcome to CGI. We recognise the efforts that you're making, and also we recognise the ongoing progress. So for the induction, our trainee will sign it off. For the buddying certificate, the buddy and the manager will sign it off. And then for the probation, the operations manager will sign it off. So it just shows that we're taking this really seriously at different levels within the business. So in terms of our existing members and what we offer them, so each of our contracts have a specific knowledge base. We do give the desk ownership over that knowledge base. So they can go in, they can create new documentation, but that does then have to go through sort of an internal audit process. So it has to be version controlled. We have to make sure that we're happy to sign off the content. But in terms of allowing them to create it and go in and have ownership over it, we empower them to do so. That's their knowledge base to work from. It's what they'll be using day in, day out. So it's important that they're comfortable with the content, that they understand the methods that they're using. Skillport is actually one of our training platforms that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. So Skillport has thousands of e-learning courses, and this can be everything from technical to HR to management. It covers all different areas of the business. So it's not just things that are going to be relevant to their job now, but also to their progression within CGI. So there's a lot of content on there, and we schedule them time off to complete courses, but also that's open to them at all times in work or outside of work. So if they actually want to go and build up some of their own knowledge outside of work, they can do so. There's nothing preventing that. We hold internal and external workshops. Each individual member is given a training budget, and as part of that, they have to come to us and say which training they would like, and sort of give us a reason for us to sign it off then. So that reason would be sort of how long they've been in the company, where they're looking to progress, how they think it will benefit them, how they think it will benefit CGI or the client, and that will go through our sign-off process. And then they'll be allocated to training, either through something they can do online, again in work or at home, or through a workshop. What you tend to find when those requests come through is that we do have a certain demographic, we do have a lot of technical minds here, so they do ask for quite similar things. So we'll actually collate that on a monthly basis, and if we see that people are asking for similar or the same training, we'll just create a workshop that can be held in CGI rather than them having to go to an external space, but that always works quite well. In terms of our promotion and progression, so we do look to promote from within, but we also see the benefit of promoting sort of people from external factors, because you do get new solutions and sharing best practice from their previous experience. But on Service Desk last year, so we have 400 members expanded on Service Desk, and there were 55 promotions on Service Desk last year. So that can either be sort of within Service Desk, going from an analyst to a manager as an example, or that can be somebody being promoted sort of internally within CGI to go to a second or third line support team. And so far this year in 2018, there have been 24 promotions. So sort of halfway through the year, we look on track to meet that. There tends to be sort of a larger number at this time of year. So we should see that ramping up over the next couple of months, and we'll hopefully beat that 55 number. But it's just important for our members to know that we will back them, we will support them, and that we want them to be part of the CGI journey for as long as they're happy to be, and we'll support them 100%. This and several other reasons is part of why we're recognised as an employer of choice globally. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of scope as to where we are, not just in Europe, but in the wider globe. But we have a lot of recognition, and that's always fantastic for people who are coming in as new members to see that we're not just the only ones shouting about it. So it's always lovely that we can show them this as part of the recruitment, and actually say, you know, you're joining the culture, you're joining an environment, you're joining the family, and this has been recognised on multiple platforms. Okay. So these are some of our support areas. I just want to spend a little bit of time going through each of them, some slightly more than others. So on Service Desk, we are lucky due to the scale that we have very specific bespoke teams. One of the most important being Service Desk change. So you would have heard me speak earlier about transition. So when a new client comes in, we have a transition team that go to client site. And then during the transition of that contract, the transition team will sit with us in Service Desk, but we'll also have an early life support team that will sit on client site. And we have the same thing with projects. When a project goes live, we'll have an early life support team for a minimum period of 2 weeks. They'll be with the client, and we'll have a transition resource to Service Desk again. So just making sure that continues. Our Service Desk change team is slightly different in that this is a team that impact assess new projects coming into the desk. So it could be that, as an example, we already have an application that we support, but that application is getting an upgrade. So they need Service Desk to now support the training for new members. They need them to support the application upgrade. Service Desk change are the people that they have to go through. So they have to have an impact assessment against it, which shows, right, how is it going to impact us? What training do we need? Do we need additional resource from the desk? So we have to make sure that all the boxes are ticked before we even allow this to go into early life support and to be visible on Service Desk. And then they have to go through the same process when that goes into BAU. So again, Service Desk change will look at the progress of the early life support. We'll see how well Service Desk has been able to cope with the demand based on what they told us the forecast would be. If that seems outside the forecast, we'll push back and say, you know, we either need to be in a position where we commercially cover more resource to the desk, or where they're expecting volumes to lower, and we need to know what the plan is to do that and get something together before that will go into BAU and we're comfortable to go ahead. Our recruitment team then, so we are an ongoing recruitment process on Service Desk. Because we luckily have a lot of new business coming in. Our latest transition, Glasgow, as an example, was an additional 40 members. So that did involve sort of a 6-month recruitment process to make sure that staff were fully confident. And from that, we pulled from existing resource senior members and new members to get a good mix within the team. Our training team then, as I spoke about earlier, there is a 3-week induction course as a minimum that they have to go through. Planning scheduling, so they do all of our sort of forecasting, make sure that we've got the right people in at the right time, but they do again sit on desk, so they have a reactive and proactive element to them, and if we were to have a high priority incident, as an example, I need a RAD message on the line, they're the first people that we would contact. We do have an in-house quality team, so as standard, our staff will have 5 calls marked within a period of a month as minimum, and as part of that, the quality team will leave comments against the criteria. Our members can actually go in then and review a screen scrape and voice recording of the quality evaluation, but not just that, they can actually listen in with their manager, so their manager can go through and say sort of areas for improvement. If we think then ongoing improvements required, we'll provide some coaching, sort of one-on-one with the quality team, or actually if we think that it's something that the Service Desk just isn't quite grasping, that tends to mean that we need to do a workshop to actually explain our intentions more clearly. We have recently had an upgrade on one of our systems for quality, and the fantastic element to that is that there's now a sort of a push button approach, as I like to call it, where the quality team, if they're marking somebody and they've identified that there's an issue, they sort of push a button. It's integrated into our plan and scheduling tool, and that will automatically schedule that member to either go through e-learning again, or to have sort of one-on-one with their team leaders so they can find out what's going wrong. If the quality team pick up that they've made that mistake twice, they'll then again press the button, and that will go for coaching with a quality member, and if that happens a third time, then we can actually say, right, maybe they need to run through the customer service training and induction and get them back to the quality workshop. But that's all sort of integrated through to the system. It's all done automatically for us, so it takes all the manual effort out and just makes it a far smoother process. Our in-tech team are a second line support team that sit on desk, and they help us both with client specific issues, going out on site as an example, doing a project go live if we need them to, or just for general support on Service Desk to deal with more sort of difficult technical queries that are going to take more time. But they also help us with coaching of new and existing members, a key metric being average handle time. They're fantastic at getting that down, and they sort of create reports that the member can then keep with little hints and tips and what they thought they did really well and sort of the key areas for improvement. So they're used on multiple platforms. We do have a continual service improvement manager that sits on desk. The title does all the talking really, but as part of that we have an improvement log. So we have sort of multiple improvement logs on desk. We'll have one that the Service Desk manager, which is specific for that client. We'll have one that they hold, which is specific to their team. but then we'll have a service desk wide one, so that when sort of new clients come in or existing clients come in and say, okay, can you share best practice? What have you done recently? What have been sort of the most innovative solutions that you've brought into service in the past 12 months? We've got it all logged, and we keep a constant track of that. Our remedy support team, so they are now moving into a remedy and multifunctional support for ServiceNow, because we're recognising that that's becoming such a large supplier to many of our clients. But again, we do have them on site if anything were to happen, and we do have a dedicated reporting team as well. So they'll produce reports on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that we're adhering to all of our SLAs. So how do we engage our member? I could talk about this all day, but I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. So we understand that with our members, they are on calls most of the day. They've got a headset attached, and sort of during their break and lunch time, they sort of go out to the canteen or go for a walk. So we understand that we need to capture them sort of in between those times. So we do have a GTO All Members call, which they can listen into, and that's recorded so they can listen back if they're on a call at a time. And the All Member call describes sort of what's happening within the UK at the moment, and also as a global demographic. And that appeals to sort of all different levels within the business. It's a very transparent approach, but that kind of gives them the vision and direction that the company's going in within the next 12 months. Annual tour is quite similar, but that's a forum where it's face-to-face. So this is actually done sort of outside of working hours. It's in a nice fancy hotel with a 3-course meal that everybody can come to, and that's an opportunity for them to speak face-to-face with our presidents across the globe, and they can sort of ask open and honest questions, find out what their plans are, and that's always sort of a really good forum to do it, and they always get that time back in lieu as well, so there's an extra little incentive for them to come. We do have sort of weekly roundup emails and internet communications. Obviously, they do spend a lot of their time on calls, so that's just sort of quick snapshots that they can capture either in between calls or during the scheduled time that we'll provide them, or during their lunch and break if they just want to catch up. Our InfoRead magazines, which I've got an example there for you. This isn't necessarily what's specific to clients. This is just what's going on within the UK at the moment, and this also has sort of stories that are specific to our members. So if our members have done a particular charity activity as an example, so you've got the 3 Peaks Challenge, the fundraising for the Prince's Trust, we will have an article on what they've done, how they went about fundraising, how much they earned, and that will be a CGI combined effort. So it's just to show our members that they're not just a number to us. We actually care about what they do in sort of inside and outside of work, and how we can support them with the things that are important to them. In terms of management style, so we do have an open door policy, and by that I mean we literally have no doors. The pods are open door pods, so that they can walk up to us and speak at any point. And in each of the pods we do have a manager and a director as well, so that if their manager's not available, there are other managers around them, and we definitely want people to feel like it's not just their manager they can speak to, they can actually speak to anybody that's out on the floor. We do have sort of ad hoc and monthly one-to-ones, team meetings, but what's important to us is the Member Satisfaction Assessment Programme. So MSAP, as it's shortened to, is something that we do once a year with our members to find out what they think of the company, how they think we treat them as an individual. Do they think that we respect them? Do they think that their colleagues adhere to the CGI values? Do they think that we're progressing well as a company, that we're offering enough innovation, that we offer them enough training? How do they compare us to other companies within the industry? So we run very, very highly against that, and we are showing improvement year on year. Again, as we would do with a client, it's an improvement log. So people will give us an example of things they want, and that's something we'll introduce. An example of that is actually our activity calendar. So one of the feedbacks we had from MSAP was that people don't know when we're going to do something. They say you leave it too long to advertise before you're going to do an event. We only find out sort of a week or 2 weeks before. So they thought, okay, we can do this, but actually we integrate an activities calendar, and we will put down the core activities for the next 6 to 12 months so that people have something to look forward to. And this can be a mixture from things like games within the office. It can be charity days. We've got one that's coming up that's a World Food Day. So we're going to order sort of foods that will hopefully represent all different areas within the globe. But it's fun stuff like that they can get engaged in. It's not sort of KPI specific. This is just something for them to look forward to as they come in sort of week to week. The gamification, I know this is a concept that a couple of our hosts have spoken about, so I won't go too much into the detail of what it is, as I'm sure you've probably got a good idea about this now. But we do use it for sort of multiple things. So a few of the examples of what we use it for is actually feedback. So one of our examples there, your feedback matters. So we were looking to do a refresh and we wanted to find out, sort of do a survey within the desk of what they'd like. So we use it on that forum to do a survey, collate all the information, and then show them, right, this is what you said, this is what we're going to do. Similar to some of the companies that have spoken today. Campaigns then, so campaigns slightly different, they are KPI specific. Our most recent campaign was when we decided to change our quality criteria, and we thought, right, to really boost this, we're going to do a campaign across quality for 2 months. And as part of that campaign, the member had to achieve 90% over the 2 months, and then they would sort of be put into a pool of people as to who got the highest. So the first prize for winning that was £300. Second was 200, and then third was 100. But we did that at an analyst level and also at a service desk manager level. So if their team was achieving 90% as an average over 2 months, they were into the pot as well. So we had some very, very happy people who were just about to go on their summer holidays who achieved a £300 award. So as you can imagine, that was very successful for us. In terms of how much we actually spend per month, so sort of a standard KPIs, we spend sort of roughly £1,300 per month. But then the campaigns and everything sit on top of that. So we've got a pool of about £20,000 sat there at the moment that we can take from at any point. Our next campaign's coming up now, which is going to be average handle time. So again, then we'll decide whether we're going to do a first, second and third approach with different price figures, or if we're going to do a holiday for two or a family holiday or something like that. But it gives us a lot of flexibility. And we can also do it with good news stories. So the good news stories can be a new client and a background to them, or it can be something that we've raised a lot of money for a charitable organisation, or it can just be something personal to us, like achieving our 5-star. But this is fantastic stuff that we can put on and share with everybody across the service desk, and it's a platform that everybody gets involved in. So what do they look like? It's always useful to know. So this is an example of some of the news articles that we've had. Welcome to Gamification was one of the first ones we sent out, but we also send that out to all of our new starters during their first week of induction. So it's just making sure that you keep that morale up and that everybody's engaged in it, and that new members aren't sort of forgotten about and expected to just adjust to it. So we can send badges to a colleague, we can recognise them for strong performance, for going above and beyond, but also members can recognise members. So if somebody on their team has helped them through coaching, or they've just been really supported during a difficult time, they can also send them a badge which will sort of recognise them, and they can thank them, which is always lovely. So service improvement. This is sort of where we started with. This was our demand channel now, and where we'd like to see ourselves. So at the moment we've got sort of a 65% split with 65% voice, 26% email, 8% self-service, 1% self-help heal. And we just want to completely move away from that. So what we're working towards is actually on the right-hand side. And the picture that we're in today is far more the demand channel of tomorrow, but we're continually working against that and looking for new pieces of technology that we can bring in. So we're looking to sort of reduce the voice, still have a human element to it, but bring in more of the self-service and self-help. And some of those channels. So web chat is a recent channel that we've had this year, and that has been sort of a fantastic introduction, especially to some of our clients that are school-based, council-based, people who are mortgage consultants that have got a client in front of them, people in hospitals who have a patient in front of them, and it's quite rude for them to just pick up the phone. So this gives them a way of interacting with us on a more discreet level. for us to be able to assist or triage the call, find a suitable time to call them back and things like that. Remedy My IT, so again, that's a self-service for our clients, but it also means that they can log in and track the progress of incidents and service requests. So if they've ordered a new PC, as an example, they can see where that is with the supplier, when it's due for delivery, and just keep a track of the order that way. Speech analytics. So this is more for real-time analysis of voice call recording to see if we can identify trending, sort of picking up on seasonality, particular times of the day that we get password resets for our clients and things like that. And then self-service password resets, which obviously is a convenient and secure way for our users to manage their credentials, both sort of on their client side, but also for remote workers as well. Artificial intelligence, I'm sure that's a word that everybody's familiar with and you've heard quite a lot recently. Our latest in artificial intelligence is actually the introduction of IP Soft Amelia. This is something that we're looking to introduce. It has been signed off now, so the proof of concept is coming in within the next couple of weeks. And that will be sort of replacing our basic log and pass functions, basic technical triage. The idea is that users can ring through and they will get sort of basic troubleshooting guides through Amelia, something that's a little bit more personal. She recognises if a user is frustrated or if they're having a good day, and she mirrors that. So we're really excited to actually have a proof of concept in now, so that we can hopefully sort of demonstrate that on a larger scale. And QStory. So you'll see the little phone picture that I've got on the right-hand side there. And QStory is actually something that's going to sit on top of our new Verint platform. And it's a workforce performance management automation tool, but actually it automatically spots staff shortages or resource issues. So as an example, and that's the reason the mobile app is up there, if one of our members decides they're not feeling very well and they need to contact us to say that they're going to ring in sick, they will contact us before their shift starts. This will automatically go to QStory. QStory will then identify any gaps in break and lunch as a result of taking their shift out of the system. They will fill those gaps with other people. They will send those people a notification of any shift changes, so their actual start and end time of their shift won't change, but their breaks or lunch may. But also, if we need to use people from across our shared service platform, it'll notify them that they may be on a change of contract when they get in, which they would have been contract trained for anyway, but it just gives them an expectation of what to expect when they walk through the door. So our champions, I spoke about this briefly earlier. Our KPIs, which are pretty standard for any service centre, are sort of obviously very important to us, and they were reiterated to our analysts during monthly one-to-ones, during their induction, during their yearly reviews. But we also have champion roles that our service desk managers take on for service desk as a whole. So that's customer satisfaction, first time fix, quality, lateness and absence. And that's for them to recognise that it's not only sort of their own contract and the impact that has, but it's actually the impact of service desk and to the wider CGI. And their main purpose is sort of how can we improve the service immediately, how can we look for a reactive element, but also the proactive, right, how can we prevent this issue happening again. And they will trend against specific teams and specific clients to see if they can see trends there, but also across service desk as a whole. So customer satisfaction, if all of a sudden we were getting a lot of negative CSS or constructive feedback about Outlook as an example, we may say, right, we actually now need to offer Outlook training to everybody across the service desk as a standard, because this is something that's coming up on a regular basis. Our community ambassadors. So this isn't just what we do day to day. It's important for us, for people to feel connected to their local community, to do things that they're passionate about, and to do things that mean something to them. So our community ambassadors are a group of people that organise charitable events through CGI. We communicate with both local charities or local councils if we need to, when we notify people of upcoming events. But we can also integrate local community projects. So as an example, for a while I sat on one of the school boards to discuss how to introduce the IT curriculum into a primary school and things like that, because none of the primary school teachers at that time were trained in IT. So we get involved in the local communities and see how we can give something back. And they're involved with sort of all sorts of charities, a lot of volunteer work, but they also pick up on some of the key events, so that activity calendar that I was talking about, sort of the fun element, and they get involved in that. They get involved in the SDI's ITC this week and run competitions for us and get the team involved, get scheduling sorted. So they're a really vital part of the business in making sure that we have that balance. And oxygen. So our absolute main importance to us is the duty of care to our members. It's making sure that they're well, they're healthy, but also that they're supporting themselves and they know where to turn to if they're having a few struggles. So the Health and Wellbeing Wellness Programme promotes healthy behaviour. So that can be through organising activity groups like cycling groups, or just going to diet plans with people, teaching them relaxation techniques, yoga techniques to deal with stress. But it's also sort of getting everybody involved in a flu vaccination program if they want it. So it's offering a free flu vaccination. We actually run out of vaccinations and had to run this across the second day. And we have health fairs and health click campaigns so that people know where to turn to. But most importantly is also our member assistance program and our mental health first aiders on site. So they are sort of anonymous forums where people can go either face-to-face or over the phone and talk to a trained professional to tell them that they're having struggles, and that can be sort of something specific to work, or it could be sort of they're having issues with their home life that they need a little bit of support on to make sure that they can go about with day-to-day life. And the member assistance program is open 24/7, 365 days a year. So if they wake up at 2 in the morning and need to speak to somebody, they've got that program there to support them.
Lisa,
obviously,
sorry to interrupt. I was trying to choose an appropriate moment there to sort of step in, but we have a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
It's a question from, I don't have a surname unfortunately, but it's a question from Todd. In one of the previous slides, you mentioned a tool called Skillport.
Yes.
Is that an in-house development?
It is, yes. So that was we're also lucky enough to have an automation team, and they were part of the in-house development that created Skillport. So it started off as a very small-scale project just to get some of our own internal e-learning on there, but we then brought in external e-learning that we paid for the licenses. But we still have people within our own training and quality department that actually create e-learning for us and put it on that platform. And yes, it's maintained in-house.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I hope that answered your question, Todd. I'm ever so sorry, Lisa. I'm going to very politely have to bring it to a close because the webinar was due to finish at 4, and I sort of don't want. Okay, so apologies for that, but if anybody, obviously we're going to make all the slides available either tomorrow or absolute latest Thursday, so everyone will be able to see the the final slides from your presentation. And if anybody wants to speak to sort of Lisa directly, I'm sure, sort of apologies for speaking on behalf of you here, Lisa, but I'm sure we can arrange something to go through some of the other bits that you were going to speak about. But before we close,
that was my last slide anyway. Not too bad.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you very much, Lisa. And thank you for everybody else for attending our first virtual event. I hope you've all enjoyed it. As I've mentioned, all the slides will be made available absolute latest Thursday. Again, as I mentioned, sort of just after the coffee break, if you could please take time to fill in the feedback forms and send them back to us. They are very important to us because it's the only way we know how to improve these events, especially considering this is our first virtual, gosh, that's difficult to say, our first virtual SDC event. If it's worked well, we can look at doing it again, but maybe with a few tweaks and some continual service improvement suggestions. So some really interesting presentations and some really good tips for everybody that's looking to embark on sort of the SDC program. So to summarize, we've had tips that include be transparent. with your trusted advisors and with your consultants or SDI generally, because without that transparency, we don't have the correct information to be able to guide and advise you appropriately. That was from our first speaker. Our second speaker, Cormac, mentioned that if you are fearful or scared, don't be, just go for it. Just go for it. Use the support network that SDI have in place to help you through it as well. And as I mentioned in Cormac's presentation, there is an online self-assessment which you can do. It'll give you a good idea of where we think or you think you may be before you embark on your SDC challenge. We sort of mentioned to use the time between the audits wisely. So if you've got 9 months, use that 9 months to make sure that all the evidence is accurate and provided in plenty of time. And appoint a project owner. So, you know, appoint an SDC champion to sort of coordinate and essentially sell the whole concept to the business. All of those tips just help make the whole project successful. So on that note, 6 minutes overdue, which is actually not bad at all. I want to thank you all for attending and hope to see you at the conference or any future SDI events we hold. Thank you very much.